Hey everybody, welcome. Today we are going to be covering every single detail of our anxiety elimination coaching program. So if you've been dealing with anxiety and you've been looking for like a real solution, like a way to really get it tackled for once and for all, maybe you're brand new to our audience, or maybe you've been with us for a while and you maybe have had questions about whether our program is the right thing for you, whether working with me is going to be the right solution and situation for you. And today what I decided I wanted to do is basically just walk through every single detail I could possibly imagine, every single question that might be on your mind, and cover everything from A to Z so that you know exactly how our method works, how it compares to the other options out there, how it compares to what you've tried so far, who it's for, who it's not for, all that sort of stuff. So if you're really looking to make sure that you overcome anxiety and you're really hungry for a real solution, you're not sure what that right solution is going to be, you're not maybe sure if what I do is the right thing for you, then I just want to have like a very frank, honest conversation with you about who this is for, who it's not for, and basically answer every single question that I could think that might be on your mind. Because the truth is that my program is an exceptional program, but it's not for everybody. And I'll be the first one to tell you who it's for and who it's not for. So I want to kind of cover that. And here's really the full agenda of what I have for you. So firstly, there's who should be listening to this, right? You should be listening to this if you've been dealing with anxiety at a fairly severe level, like if it's been a 7 out of 10 or higher, especially if it's been like that for a prolonged period of time, like at least 3 months. I do exceptionally well with people who've had anxiety basically for like their entire life, like going all the way back to like age, 8 to 10 range. But I also work with people who just developed anxiety recently as well. Okay, so if you've been dealing with anxiety that's been pretty severe, it's been chronic, then you definitely want to listen up. You definitely especially want to listen up if you feel like you've tried a lot of things. Okay, if you feel like you've been Googling a lot of stuff, if you've been looking at a lot of YouTube videos, if you've been trying a lot of things on your own, like if you've gone already through the classic simple stuff like breathing exercises and journaling and meditation and self-help books and the CBT workbooks, and if you feel like you've done all of those classic sort of self-help, self-oriented stuff, and you've been trying to figure this out on your own for a long time, and you can't seem to figure out a way to really get the anxiety like fully handled, maybe you found a couple things that like help a little bit, then this is definitely going to be for you. Absolutely. This is especially for you 1000% if you've also gotten really serious about trying to get the anxiety handled and you've even gone the more traditional, more substantial means. Like if you've tried therapy, if you've done traditional therapy for at least a 3 to 6 month period, if you ever did that at any point, then we definitely want to listen up because there may be some simple things that you were missing in therapy that you could learn. If you've tried medications, particularly if you've tried 3 or more medications, then you definitely want to listen in, because if you've tried 3 or more medications, then the likelihood of you getting better results with additional changes to your medication is very, very low. And there's specific reasons why that is. There's actually some breaking new medical research that's come out in the past couple of years from the College of London and some various other sources I'm going to be sharing with you to help you understand maybe why you're hitting a wall there. And if you've also been curious about coaching, maybe you've seen, some other people out there who've been talking about mental health, and there's a lot of snake oil. There's also really honestly a lot of fluff. There's a lot of just bullshit out there. There's a lot of like affirming positive motivational quotes on Instagram, but there's not a lot of hard-hitting, practical, meat on the bone, tangible step-by-step guidance and instructions. And I hate that. And what I pride myself on, and what I've always prided myself on, is just telling people the truth, just cutting to the chase, telling people like it is, telling them what they need to know. And I'm just going to tell you, basically in as comprehensive of a nutshell as I possibly can, exactly what I've done with almost 600 clients now in my career to help them really get a tangible solution in place for their anxiety. This is also for you if you feel like you're not content with coping, okay? If you are totally fine and content with the whole coping idea, like you're okay just making the anxiety 10 to 25% less, of a problem, if you're really totally sold and not willing to budge at all on the idea that you're gonna have anxiety for the rest of your life, like if you are totally committed to the idea, like I'm absolutely gonna have this anxiety for the rest of my life and all I can do is cope with it, this is frankly not for you. But if you're the type of person who's like, I'm not content with coping, and part of me feels like there's gotta be a way to get past this, part of me feels like There's got to be a way to live a normal life, and I'm willing to do what I got to do to make that happen. It would be worth it for me to figure out what is the path to get that done. If that's you 1000% absolutely want to be listening to what I've got to say. And I would also say this, if you feel like the anxiety is keeping you from living the life that you want to live, then you definitely want to listen up, because those are the only people that we work with, is if the anxiety is at a level where it's impeding your ability to live how you want to live. Now, there could be all sorts of definitions for that. It could be an extreme situation, like a woman I just helped get over her driving phobia and her driving anxiety. Now she's driving again just fine. That's an extreme example. But it could also just be keeping you from dating and having the love life that you want. It could be keeping you from having the tough conversations with your boss or coworkers that you need to. It could be keeping you from being present with your kids, okay? But we tend to only work with people who are in that like spot where they're like, damn, I really don't like this anxiety BS. I want to get this out of my life, and I'm not just going to do the whole coping thing, okay? So listen up if that's you. So I've said who this is for. I'm about to go through who this is not for. Okay, then I'm going to cover very briefly my background and story, because you might be thinking, who the hell is this guy? Why should I listen to him? Who gives a shit? Why should I believe what you have to say? Totally valid, completely reasonable questions you should be asking yourself. I'm going to cover that real quick. I'm going to go into the 4 and only 4 ways to tackle anxiety. There are really only 4 main options that you have available. Now, there's different variations inside of those 4 options, which we'll cover. But it's really important, whether you decide you're going to work with me or you're going to figure this out on your own or whatever you're going to do, you got to know these 4 different ways of tackling the anxiety. And you need to understand that there are advantages and there are disadvantages to all 4 of these routes, including my own. Okay, so I want to make sure that you're very clear on what those are. Okay. Next, we're going to cover the method and the philosophy, basically the 3 phases of what I do with every single client, how I look at things very differently, how we do things completely differently than anybody else in the industry. And I'm basically going to be sharing for you in detail the exact method that I've pioneered and refined over the past 7.5 years. Okay. Next, we're going to go through what it takes to succeed with our method, which there are only 3 simple things you got to do to succeed with our method. But like I said, it's for some people. It is not for everybody. So we'll help you get clear on if it's for you or not. Our number 1 priority is client success. We do not take on people that we believe will not be successful. And of course, we don't want you to sign up for anything that's going to cause you to not be successful too. So we just want to help you make an informed decision. Okay, then I'm going to go through every single nut and bolt about what is included in the program. I'm going to cover our core program. And then I'm also going to cover that we have a special kind of promotional thing that we're doing for the next 36 hours. It's closing at the end of tomorrow night. I'm going to cover, but there's several different bonuses that we're providing as a part of that special offer. Okay. Then I'm going to be covering and breaking down how we have not just 1, but we have 2 satisfaction guarantees in writing that completely take away any chance of risk or failure on your part, because we know that that's your number 1 fear and concern, is how can I be sure that I'm actually going to succeed? That's your number 1 concern. So we've got a way to completely insulate you from that risk and protect you for that. I'm going to explain exactly how that works and what all that entails. Then I'm going to break down what the client journey typically looks like week by week by week by week. So I'm going to go in pretty substantial detail, and I'm going to cover pretty much everything. Now, this is obviously a video and a podcast episode here that we're doing for everybody. So I'm going to be speaking about what tends to happen. I'll also do my best to cover the different nuances. But one key thing that's important for you to understand is no 2 clients are treated exactly the same with us, ever. Everything is customized for each individual person. And so that's something where, of course, we need to have like a one-on-one conversation with you to talk about how the program is going to be customized for you as well. So we'll cover that. And then I'm going to cover exactly what you need to do to apply, what the application looks like, what happens as soon as you apply, what all of the steps are to get accepted into the program. I'm going to cover what your very first week would look like. And then I have a big long list of questions that we've gotten over the course of the years that people ask us from time to time, and I'm going to cover all of them. There's 50 of them, so I'm going to cover all 50 frequently asked questions as quickly as I can. I guarantee some of those questions are ones that you have. Okay. So I basically covered who this is for. You got extreme anxiety. It's like a 7 out of 10 or higher. It's chronic. It's been around at least 90 days. You are the type of person who really wants step-by-step clear instructions. You're not really interested in woo-woo, theoretical, pump-up, motivational BS. Like, you really want to know how this works. Okay, you want to master it. That's who this program is for. It's for people who are okay also with things not being sugar coated. Okay, so there are some people who prefer validation over transformation. And those are the people who prefer validation over. Everybody likes validation, by the way, so I'm not making you wrong for that. However, there comes a time where you have to prioritize transformation over validation. You need a leader in your life who's going to be able to lovingly but assertively tell you, hey, this needs to change, and here's what you need to change, and here's what you need to change, and I'll help you, and I'll guide you, and I'll support you, but I'm going to also hold you accountable and make sure that you change X and Y and Z, and the time is now. It's time to stop procrastinating. And that's how I interact with my clients. That's a big part of what makes them successful, is that for once in their entire lives, they have somebody in their corner for their mental health that actually tells them like it is, tells them what needs to happen, and holds a very high standard for them to make sure that they actually do it. And so if you're the type of person who's been craving leadership like that, you've been craving just like a clear structure, then this is absolutely for you. If instead you're the type of person who prioritizes validation and comfort over transformation. In other words, I'm just going to call it out like it is, okay? In other words, you're not really taking your anxiety recovery seriously. You're interested in anxiety recovery, but you're not fully committed to anxiety recovery. If that's the case, and you're more interested in staying kind of totally in the comfort zone, you don't want to be challenged at all. You don't want any growth, right? You're not willing to take a step into the water, then it's just not really going to work out for you, okay? And by the way, nothing is really going to work out for you either. Like, there's nobody who's going to be able to help you if you're totally committed to the comfort and validation route. If that is your preference, then you're probably honestly going to be better suited for just traditional talk therapy, and they will sit and they will listen and they will not disagree with you. They will not challenge you. They will not confront any of your limiting beliefs, really. They might offer a couple suggestions here or there. They'll be very nice. They'll be very gentle, right? I'll always be nice, but I'm also going to be direct and help you elevate and get the mental health that you want, because that's the most compassionate thing that I could do. If you were in a burning building, right, and I need to get your ass out of that burning building, I shouldn't just go into your bedroom and be like, hey, would you like to get out of the burning building? Oh, you don't? You want to sleep in? You actually want to take a snooze? Okay, no problem. Well, when you feel like it, it would probably be a really good idea for us to get you out of this burning building. Okay, that's not how I do things. I shake your ass awake and say, hey, it's time to get out of the burning building. And I'll drag you out if I have to, right? Because I care about you too much to placate you. I care about you too much to sugarcoat things. I care about you too much to not tell you the truth. And I know that some people are listening to that and you're getting turned off by that. And that's cool. That's fine. Because I just want to be clear and direct about who I am and how I do things. And I'll be honest with you too, by the way, that when I first got started, I used to do the whole pleaser thing. So the way I would coach people would be very similar to a therapist, where I could see that they were doing something that was harming them, but I knew that if I called them out on it and brought their awareness to it, that they wouldn't like it. It would be a little uncomfortable, or they might feel a little, a little bad about it or something like that. And so I wouldn't say anything. I would bite my tongue a lot. And what I realized is I was fundamentally being selfish, because I was wanting my clients' approval more than I was wanting their success, okay? And that became a big change that I made. And a decision that I made is that I will always, always, always do or say what is in the best interests of the client, always. So everything I do comes from a compassionate place. But to truly be compassionate, it's kind of like, if there was a child who kept burning themselves, it was going to burn themselves on the stove, and the only way you could get the child to not burn themselves on the stove is to grab their hand and kind of pull them away from the stove. That would be the compassionate thing. So I'm never looking to be direct and assertive just for the sake of doing it or to stroke my ego. I'm not by a long shot. But every client requires a certain level of accountability. Every client requires a certain amount of leadership. Every client requires that sort of loving but firm hand to take them into a realm that they've never been to before. Because if we just keep you totally comfortable doing everything the same way you've always done, your life will look exactly the same way it does right now. And that's just the reality that you got to understand, okay? Now, in addition, let me share who else this is not for. This is really not for people who've got really, really low grade anxiety where it's not really a priority for you to deal with. Now, there are some people where the anxiety is not very high. Maybe it's like a 4 or a 5 out of 10. It's not really affecting you very much. However, you might be the type of person where you're like, I cannot stand the fact that anxiety is still in my life and it's limiting me. And it is a top absolute priority for me to get this done. If that's you, then this is definitely still for you. But if you're more in that lukewarm, like, yeah, my anxiety, it's been there forever. You know, it comes, it goes. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. It kind of bothers me, but whatever, right? If you're in that really lukewarm state, this is really not for you. Because when we take on a the client being successful is a non-negotiable for us. We do not tolerate a client failing. And so as long as they agree to our qualifications, we do whatever we got to do to make sure that they succeed. And so unless you're like all in, so to speak, it's just not really for you. You know what I mean? Like if you're more in that sort of, yeah, I mean, it would be nice if the anxiety was gone, but I don't really care. Then honestly, this is not really for you. But if you're in a state of like, I really need to get this thing solved and I'm tired of this like running my life, then listen up, because this is definitely for you. Okay. Also, who is this not for? This is not for someone who is perfectly content and fine and comfortable with the results they are getting with what they currently have. That should hopefully be self-evident, right? But like if you're the type of person, there is a section of the population who feels like, well, yeah, I mean, I've got anxiety, but I'm on medication, I'm in therapy, and honestly, I feel great. You know, I mean, as long as I take my meds, as long as I see my therapist once a week, like I feel good. Then this is not really for you. You should probably just keep doing what you're doing, you know, because why stop doing what's working for you? You know what I mean? I care more that you do what is right for your mental health than I care about you being a client, honestly. So if you've already found something that's working, just keep doing that. But if you have not yet found something that is working, or something that, there's a lot of people out there, most people out there are in a state where you found things that are valuable, but you have not found things that are sufficient. So for most of you, you found that medication or therapy has added some amount of value, but not enough. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to what I'm saying right now. And so if that's you, like if some part of you is hungering for more and you really, like part of you can't really settle for the idea of just continuously accepting the idea of anxiety in your life, then this is definitely for you. But if you're in a state where you're like, I mean, yeah, I got my anxiety, but it's pretty well handled, it's pretty well managed, I mean, it's okay, then this is not for you, okay? Now, my background and story, going to keep this mercifully brief, but just so you know, I had major anxiety that developed in my teens. It became crippling depression, became suicidal depression, and my mental health was at an all-time low. In my teens, I had a suicide attempt that was interrupted by a family member at the last minute. I was then put in an intensive 2-week hospitalization program. And then all of a sudden I got firsthand experience with the current state of the mental health industry. So I started seeing a therapist weekly. They did all the classic ink blot crap and, you know, questionnaires and all that stuff. You know, how do you feel like harming yourself today? Like all those sorts of things. They put me on medication immediately. And that's when I started my journey of recovery, and I basically vowed to myself I was going to get over this. I was going to find a way to live without anxiety, without depression. I was going to have good mental health. And the reason I decided that was because I met someone inside of the hospital, and she was a couple years older than me at the time. She was like in her late teens, and she was just a really beautiful, and I mean beautiful as in like she was just a very warm, like kind soul. You know, she was just a really kind person, and she was joyful, but she was in the hospital because basically a family member had harmed her. Her father she had bruises all up and down her arms, and so a family member didn't know what to do and basically just brought her to that juvenile psych ward as a way to get her away from her dad for a couple weeks. But she was really truthfully like joyful and happy, and it was really bizarre. Like I could tell it was not fake. I thought it was fake for a second, but I could tell she was like really truthfully joyful and happy. And I started asking her questions about her home life, and she told me how horrible it was that she was like beaten every day. And here I was suicidal, depressed, anxious out of my mind, but my home life, I mean, I thought I had it bad, but it really wasn't anything compared to what she was dealing with. And in my head, I thought, okay, if she is able to live with joy and happiness, even though she's got, such a horrible situation going on with her family, there has got to be a way to get rid of this anxiety and depression that's cluttering up my head. It cannot just be that I am living in a bad set of circumstances, because she's living in worse circumstances than me, and she doesn't have the mental issues that I have. And so it was just a big breakthrough for me. And I was with her. Some people would say, oh, well, maybe it was just an act or you didn't read it well. But I was there with her for like 2 weeks and I got to know her. So anyway, it was a beautiful thing. And it got me realizing that your mental health is not determined by your circumstances. And that's something I still believe to this day. And that's something that may be tough for you to hear or understand, and I can expand on it later, but it has much more to do with how your brain processes your circumstances. And so I realized I had to figure out how my brain worked. I had to figure out a user's manual of sorts for my brain. I had to figure out how to feel how I wanted to feel, how to think how I wanted to think, and how to act how I wanted to act. And I was totally committed to getting rid of the anxiety and the depression. So I thought what most of you have thought, which is, okay, cool, let's do what we got to do. Let's get on medication. Let's do the therapy. Let's do it, right? Let's get this thing handled. That's what society tells me I need to do. So let's get it done. And to be honest, some of it was a little helpful. When I look back on it, the therapist that I worked with, super nice guy, super kind guy. And it's not even that, he did have a couple good suggestions. There were some moments in our sessions where I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. That's kind of nice. There were a couple moments. I really could tell he cared about me. I really could tell he was doing his absolute best. But there came a point where I was like, I just don't really feel like I'm getting really very far with this. Can you guys relate to that, by the way? Like, have you guys ever hit a point maybe around like month 3, somewhere in the 3 to 6 month range where you're like, okay, what is the plan? How do we get rid of this crap? That was the big question that was on my mind. And I was really not content with the whole idea of like, okay, I just got to keep coming to therapy like every week, talking about the same crap over and over every single week. Like there's no plan, there's no structure. Like what the hell is going on? And I was just not content with that. And so I realized, I kind of asked him one day, I was like, hey, so how do I get rid of this stuff? And he didn't really have an answer. He was like, well, we just keep talking about it. And I'm like, oh my God, I do not want to do this. Like, I feel like I'm getting nowhere. So that's when I realized, like, okay, cool. I love you, therapist guy. Like, you're great. You're a nice guy. But, maybe we're kind of like hitting a bit of a brick wall, right? And I like to call this the glass ceiling in therapy, right? You kind of hit this, like, it's not really like a limit, but it really is a limit. It's this like plateau that no one can really see. You don't even know when you're there really, but it's there, right? And so when you start hitting that, you got to look for other answers. And so I did what a lot of you guys do, which is I thought, all right, well, maybe the medication is the answer. And I had tried 3 to 4 different medications, different dosages. They had taken me up, they'd taken me down. There had been different side effects. There'd been all this different stuff. And nothing really was gelling. Nothing was really working. And so it was like almost like we would correct one problem and create another problem, basically, right? Like maybe the anxiety went down, but then now my body feels weird. Or, well, maybe I don't feel as depressed, but now like I feel numb, basically. And so it's creating another problem. And so I just didn't really feel alive. I didn't feel healthy. I didn't feel well. My body just felt weird. I also just didn't like the idea of being dependent on medication or therapy. I was like, I want to live my life. I want to be a normal person, right? Like, I just want to like be normal. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out on my own, which is usually the conclusion that people make at this point. And that's what I did. So I was like, all right, let's go figure this out. And so I started consuming information at a very rapid rate. I started looking for anything that would give me answers. And so I started with like the traditional, different therapy models, right? Like CBT, DBT, EMDR, all that classic stuff. Tried the workbooks, tried those different things. And I realized like, yeah, this is all kind of like sounding the same. And then all of a sudden I started realizing like, if I keep just trying to cope with this stuff, that's all I'm ever going to do. That was kind of the big breakthrough insight I had, was every single thing I've been learning has been a coping strategy. It's all been about how to manage anxiety, not how to live without it, not how to get rid of it. So I started Googling different things. I started looking for different information, and it was more about how do I actually overcome the anxiety and the depression. And this was like a long time ago now. This was like well over 15 years ago, right? And so, there wasn't as much stuff on the internet as there is now. And I found that there were a handful of experts that did work in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. They were not very well known because they were basically labeled non-traditional. Most of them were therapists. Some of them called themselves coaches. Some of them called themselves interventionists, right? There were different people. But as I read their books, as I started to watch like some old school like tapes of them intervening with patients, I started to realize that they were doing something very different than the traditional therapy that I had been through. And basically what I learned of was that there was this whole school of thought that was basically like labeled non-traditional. So it never really came into the mainstream. It never really like came into the limelight. And all of these people were basically of the idea of you absolutely 100% can live a normal, natural, mentally healthy life. But in order to do that, the person who's leading the client, right? So the coach or the therapist or whatever you want to call him, has to be more direct, has to be able to intervene, has to be able to give structure and guidance and step-by-step pieces. And that was really refreshing because all of a sudden I started to see like, holy cow, cool. This is like actually useful, practical information that I can start to use. So that was a big thing, was the whole difference between non-directive therapy and non-directive approaches, which is a big reason why people plateau, because no one is telling you what the F to do. And then the difference with directive approaches. And so that's when I fell in love with the idea of coaching. And coincidentally, a lot of people like, just coaching in general now compared to therapy, because with coaching in general, there's a ton of shitty coaches out there, don't get me wrong, but the one thing that most coaches will do is give you structure and steps and guidance, right? That's kind of like coaching 101, and that's why a lot of people find that more refreshing. But I realized there was another piece that these people had figured out, and what they had figured out was that it was really about retraining the brain to have a different automatic response. So basically their philosophy was that it wasn't that anxiety or depression or OCD or any of these types of issues were best described as permanent disorders. What I realized is that they were not of the mindset that, okay, your mind is doing this one thing right now, therefore you have a disorder that you're going to have for the rest of your life. Their attitude was, okay, your mind is doing this thing right here, right now, automatically, involuntarily, so of course it's a problem, it exists, we need to deal with it, but it can absolutely be solved. We can figure this out, we can change it, and we can retrain the brain to have a different automatic neurological response. And at first I was pretty skeptical of this, but the interesting thing was a lot of these professionals had follow-up sessions with their clients, like 2 years, 3 years, 7 years later, where they literally showed tapes and like written and video testimonials where the people still maintained the change so many years later. And I was like, all right, well, maybe there's got to be something to this. I'm skeptical, but I'll try it out myself. So I got so obsessed with this idea of retraining the brain. All right. And what I've learned is this is still a key pillar of what I do. And now I've figured out a lot of ways to do things way faster than those people I initially learned from. So now we can usually get somebody like virtually anxiety free, or at least a 75% reduction in 90 days, very often even less than that, sometimes a little longer than that, but it tends to happen pretty quickly. But a key pillar of that process that has still always been a part of the process is the concept of retraining the brain to have a different automatic response. And that's something we'll cover here in a second. All right. So that's kind of my background. That's my story. So I was able to overcome the anxiety, really, truly overcome it. Now, does that mean I'm like perfect? I never have a bad day, or I never feel a negative feeling or emotion? No. And I want to be very clear, like, that's not what I'm promising you. But what I am saying is that any human being who's willing to follow a couple simple guidelines, you can live a totally normal, mentally healthy life. And that means that you live a life that only has lowercase a anxiety and not uppercase a anxiety. Lowercase a anxiety is normal, it's natural, it's healthy. There's a quote from one of my mentors that I love, and I was very privileged to be able to work with one of the leading founders, basically, of family and relationship coaching, and one of the pioneers in family and relationship therapy. Her name is Chloe Madonis, and she used a quote with me, and she said that growing up is like moving from one problem to the next, and that there are problems that you're going to encounter in your life very naturally and normally. The trick is to not get hung up on the same problem for too long. And so that's what we mean by lowercase a anxiety versus uppercase a anxiety, right? Lowercase a anxiety is like you graduate high school, you're going to college, and you're a little nervous. That's normal, that's natural. But you shouldn't feel so nervous that you're unable to talk to another human being, because that's like the level of anxiety you should have dealt with when you were like 6 or 7 years old, right? So we don't want that same problem and that same fear limiting you later on in life. When you feel anxious the first time you're driving a car at 15 or 16 years old and you're getting on the highway, that's a normal, natural thing. If you're feeling so anxious that you don't feel comfortable getting on the highway when you're 46, well, now we've got a problem. Now it's become uppercase A anxiety, right? So you can live a life without uppercase A anxiety. You're going to have a life with lowercase a anxiety, and that's normal, okay? So, that's a little bit of my background, and so once I figured out how to get my own mental health under control, and this is no bullshit. Some people call me and they're like, "Are you serious?" But I'm telling you the God's honest truth. I literally got rid of my anxiety and my depression before I graduated high school, and I have not had recurring anxiety or depression since. I truly have not had it. I just haven't. I've had some bad days. I've had some challenging moments. But it's never gotten to that level where it's recurring and chronic and repetitive and debilitating and all that stuff, okay? And I'm still growing just like any other human being is growing, but my mental health has been remarkably stable for since that period of time, okay? And so that's the key thing that I want you to understand. I'm not telling you that to showboat or impress or to whatever. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand you can absolutely do this. There's nothing special about me. Nothing at all. I was on the path to have anxiety and depression for the rest of my life. I was showing all of the same signs. It showed up early, like from about as early as I can remember, like age 7 or 8, I remember starting to feel those feelings. It really culminated in a really disastrous way in my teens, and I had gotten all the labels and the diagnosis, and if I would have stuck on that path, I would still be in therapy, and I'd still be on medication, and I would still be doing that same old shit I always did. So I want you to understand that there's nothing special about me. It's just that if you do something different, you get a different result. If you do something the same over and over and over and over again, you will get the same result. And that's why my clients are very often people who've struggled for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And then all of a sudden they just do what I show them and it's totally different. And they go, holy shit, this feels so much easier. Why didn't I learn this 30, 40 years ago? It's because no one teaches it. Okay, so that's the key thing to understand. All right, so what is it that I do? What is it that I learned? And how is it different from what else is out there? So now I told you that retraining the brain is kind of like a key thing, and that's true, but I've actually learned that that's not enough. There's also 2 additional pieces that have to be in place if we want to make sure that somebody lives an anxiety-free life perpetually. Okay, and so we've refined this. I've been doing this full time now for a long time. I'm coming up on 600 clients now that I've worked with in my career. And so I've learned a lot. There's a lot I've learned about what has to happen to make sure that somebody actually stays on the right path. Not just gets on the right path, but actually gets the anxiety dealt with and then stays on the right path, okay? So there's 4 key ways you can approach anxiety basically out there in the world, okay? And let me be more specific with my language because that's not totally accurate. Yes, there's dozens and dozens of like different books and different the XYZ method and the ABC strategy and all that kind of stuff, right? But however, there's basically 4 kind of core ways that you can look at your anxiety issue and that you can deal with it. Okay, and when I say deal with it, I guess I should say approach dealing with it. There are advantages and disadvantages to all 4 of these. When I was brand new in my coaching career, I used to be like, come one, come all, everybody work with me, I'll help anybody. And I can help just about anybody. However, it is important that you do what you feel is right for you. So I just want to help you make an informed decision. And like I said, my thing is not necessarily the best fit for everybody. So I'll cover that too. But here are the 4 main ways to deal with this. All right. Number 1, the first main way you can look at an anxiety issue is that you can adopt the attitude that came around in the 80s and was really popularized in the 90s, which is this idea that if you're exhibiting anxiety, you have an anxiety disorder. That disorder is going to be with you for the rest of your life, and that you really can only correct that, or not even correct it, but you can modify it, let's say, by adjusting your biochemistry. That really we can just reduce what you're dealing with down to the explanation of you have biochemistry in your brain that is imbalanced, and we can fiddle with that biochemistry and balance you out. And of course, we're going to use that with medication. Now, here's what's really fascinating about this. That theory was actually just a theory. It came out in the 80s, and the pharmaceutical companies actually totally grabbed hold to that and started pushing that, and it became very popularized. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory. What I'm sharing with you has now been verified by scientific medical research. Okay, if you don't believe me, look up the College of London. Okay, in 2022, they verified beyond a shadow of a doubt that anxiety is not best described as a biochemical imbalance, and that is not really the source of the problem. Okay, here's the exact thing that I'm looking at right here. I've got my quotes and my stuff right here. Let me just share this with you right here. Here's a direct quote right here from the Psychiatric Times. Numerous case studies demonstrate that patients can fully recover from anxiety by changing their mental patterns, leading to normal, fulfilling lives. The experts are now looking into the idea of brain retraining, and there's now tons of research that's coming out that supports it. Here's another one here as well, basically supporting the idea that recovery is possible for everybody. This is from the University College London. Patients should not be led to believe that antidepressants work like insulin for diabetes. Recovery requires more than just correcting hypothetical chemical imbalances. Okay, that's from the University College of London. Here's evidence on talk therapy not being sufficient for anxiety. This is from the NHS, the National Health Service in England. Okay, this is a 2023 report from the NHS, showed that less than 50% of patients that received NHS-approved talk therapies noticed substantial improvements in their anxiety. Okay, less than 50%. The success rate for any type of change was 49.9%, indicating that talk therapy basically almost always fails to provide complete recovery, and very often doesn't even provide any sort of improvement. Okay, here's another quote. This is from the National Institute of Mental Health. Many patients report feeling they have plateaued with talk therapy after several months, with dissatisfaction stemming from its inability to address the root cause of anxiety, particularly in more severe cases. Okay, here's another quote from the National Institute of Mental Health. Patients often report that while talk therapy helps them cope, it doesn't provide the tools necessary to fully overcome their anxiety. That's National Institute of Mental Health 2023 findings. Okay, now on the subject of brain retraining, there's a lot, again, of authority that's coming out. People are looking into this much more seriously because people like me have kind of come up with their own adaptation of it and have used it successfully. Studies report that anxiety is a learned response, and it can be unlearned through brain retraining techniques. Okay, this is from Science Daily. That's a direct quote from Science Daily. Okay, here's another quote. Various techniques have proven effective in reducing anxiety long-term by helping individuals change their mental and emotional responses to triggers. So basically by rewiring the automatic response that you have to the trigger, now we can deal with the issue. All right. Here's another quote from University College London. Our research shows that with the right tools, the brain can be conditioned to respond differently to anxiety, enabling long-term relief. Okay, so there's just a little bit of recent proof for you, evidence that this is just not, the old idea of mental health is just a biochemical imbalance. You're going to have this for the rest of your life. We just need to medicate you and keep talking about it. is not working. It's not substantiated. It was the only route available for people in the 20th century, in the 1900s. But that idea goes all the way back to the late 1800s with Sigmund Freud. It is an over-century-old idea, okay? So the idea that a biochemical imbalance just needs to be corrected has now been debunked. Scientists are now saying this is not even true. This was literally an assumption that was made, and the pharmaceutical industry grappled hold of it, and doctors mean well, right? General physicians and psychiatrists mean well, but that was just the leading prevailing theory at the time. And so that's why it's become cultural. It's like what the term is a paradigm, right? It's become the way in which society looks at the issue, but it is now being debunked, okay? And so if you just look at your own practical life evidence, and for me, I've worked with about 600 clients, but I do about 800 to 1,000 consultations a year with people dealing with anxiety issues. And so I'll ask them, what's your history with medication? What's your history with therapy? How well did those work for you? What were the positives? What were the negatives? The overwhelming majority of people will tell me that medication did little or almost nothing for them. There is a small fraction of people who will say, yeah, medication's great. It's working well for me. I'm doing really well as long as I stay on it. And if it does, great, kudos. That's awesome. If you're cool with that and you have no problem taking medication indefinitely, awesome. I'm not against that in any way. But for the vast majority of people, they find it to be valuable, but not sufficient. And that's the key thing that's important to understand is, again, if you keep doing the same thing you have always done, you will only get the same results you've always gotten. Or a lot of times you end up getting worse results long term because you develop a chemical dependency, or you keep having to increase the dosages, or you end up hitting a life milestone where now all of a sudden your anxiety is elevated at a higher level. And now the medication you were on before isn't enough to deal with it. Okay? And a lot of people run into those situations. So you don't have to take my word for it. Take the scientist's word for it. Medication just tends not to go super well for the majority of people. But if it's working good for you, then great. That's cool. Go ahead and do that. It just doesn't deal with the root of the problem. Now, here's my sort of simple philosophy as to why it doesn't deal with the root of the problem. Is this. Okay, the human brain has about 100,000 thoughts a day. Scientists have confirmed this. It's been tracked, it's been logged, it's been verified. Your brain has about 100,000 thoughts a day. What has also been verified is that your brain has between 80 and 90% of the same thoughts every single day. Now, some people's brains are currently wired to have automatic positive thoughts, APT. Some people's brains are wired to have automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs is what they're often referred to. Every time you have a thought, like for example, if you have a thought like, gosh, what if I get in a car wreck when I'm driving to work today? If you have a thought like that, that thought fires off a chemistry in your brain. Every single thought is like a super tiny pill, right? Like an anxiety-inducing pill. So if I have, let's just say I have 100,000 thoughts, and let's say 70% of those thoughts are negative. Okay, that would probably be a common percentage for people. Well, that's basically meaning that I am taking like 70,000 tiny anxiety-inducing pills a day, and now I'm going to take what, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 anxiety-reducing pills a day to counteract those ones? Okay, cool, that's great, but now I'm not really dealing with the source of the problem. Does that make sense? So that's the advantage of going the medication route is this, okay? And this is just the real talk on it. It is a short-term solution, and some people are looking for a short-term solution. If that's what you're after, and you have no problem with the idea of being on medication, you don't want to learn any new skills, you don't want to do any work, you don't want to like do the inner growth stuff, and I'm not judging you, I'm just saying like some people don't want to do that. If you don't want to do that and you're really just looking for the quickest fix possible, then yes, I would definitely go do the medication route. The second thing is if medication's worked well for you, cool, awesome, great, keep doing it. The challenge is, the disadvantage is that it tends not to work for the vast majority of people in the long term, and even for the people it quote works for, it's usually not sufficient. It's usually not enough for you to really truly feel like you are honestly feeling any better, right? There is another quote from a journal here. This is from Science Daily, which says clinical trials have demonstrated that SSRIs are often barely distinguishable from placebos in terms of effectiveness. right? So in control groups where they give people anti-anxiety or antidepressants medications, and then they give people placebos, the results are almost exactly the same. So it's just something to keep in mind. So that is option number one, is try to adjust things biochemically. Here's option number two. Option number two is the talk therapy route. Okay, now I just gave you a lot of, again, quotes and evidence. There are a lot of people who are coming out that are realizing that talk therapy is just not as effective as people think it is. Now, again, there are exceptions to the rule, and I'm not saying this applies to every single person. I always get like one person or two who like puts a comment on my videos that's like, I've had this therapist for 8 years and they're great and I love them and my life is so much better because of therapy and I'll never quit therapy. That's great. Like, awesome. Cool. I'm not here to argue with you. That's awesome. Like, if you're doing something that's working for you, great. But if you're having an issue where the therapy's not enough, here's maybe why it's not enough. Okay, here's a big thing that most people are bewildered to learn. Okay, now basically the father of talk therapy as we know it today is Sigmund Freud. Okay, he was the original guy who came up with this idea. He called it the talking cure. And so basically his idea is he would take a patient inside of his office, he would sit him down on the comfy couch, and he would let them talk, and he would just listen. He would just talk, he would let them talk and listen, and he would reflect things back to them like a mirror. And this is still a learning and a teaching device that is used in today's schools with therapists and counselors to this day. The whole idea that you should not intervene, you should not really suggest, you should not direct, you should not try to move the session in a particular way as the therapist, but rather you should let the client, you should let the patient simply talk, get things out off their chest, and reflect things back to them. So basically, therapists are trained to create an environment, a safe space, a place to process their thoughts and their feelings. And the whole idea that Freud had was that if you talked enough, you would eventually arrive at new conclusions on your own. Now, here's the thing. That sometimes works. Sometimes works. This is why, by the way, like if you're dealing with a really tough situation in your life, you have an impulse to call your mom or your dad or your sister or your best friend. You want to get it out. And it is healthier to get it out than to keep it in your head. And for most normal people, you get it out, you feel better, you move on. But for people who have automatic negative thoughts, listen to me now because this is really important. When your brain has automatic negative thoughts, what tends to happen in a therapeutic environment is you go into the therapy session and you share those automatic negative thoughts. So instead of them being inside of your head, you get them out. And it's kind of like vomiting after you've been drinking a lot. It feels better in the short term. You're like, oh gosh, that's out of my system. The problem that most people have is that then the very next week, those same automatic negative thoughts keep coming back because they have not trained their brain to go in a different direction, and they simply are in an environment where those automatic negative thoughts keep being heard and listened to and reinforced. It doesn't ever solve the root of the problem. You stay in what I call the coping trap, the coping prison, where all you're able to do is do things to basically like release the steam valve pressure by 10 to 20%, and then it builds right back up again. And it never really feels like any sort of lasting relief. Okay. Now, like I said, there is a fraction of the population where talk therapy works really, really well. And it usually is in two types of situations. Number one, there's a very, very small percentage of talk therapists who are actually very much like me, very, very small, like probably less than 5%. Of talk therapists who are willing to go against the status quo, give you clear instructions, give you direct advice, call you on your shit, and tell you what needs to change, right? And be a leader in your life, okay? So in those cases, they sometimes are effective. They're almost always more effective than the majority of people, okay? The other situation is the talk therapist does what they're trained to do, and the patient talks it out, and they either feel totally good so long as they have that person to talk to every single week, or they really truthfully are good at working through things on their own so long as they have someone to talk to. Okay, those are the kind of situations where talk therapy tends to work well. Now, a lot of times people have this question of, how do I know if talk therapy is right? How do I know if I've been doing it long enough? Have I stuck with it long enough? Am I with the right therapist? Well, here's what I tend to say, because this is what I've seen just in my experience working with people, surveying people, consulting with thousands and thousands of people, is if you have done at least 4 months of consecutive talk therapy, you'll know one of two things. You'll be feeling like you are really truthfully making incremental progress towards your goals, and you'll be feeling like very confident that you're eventually going to get there. Or you're going to start feeling the plateau is taking place by month 4. If you feel that the plateau is taking place by month 4, then it is a very clear indication that talk therapy is not going to be the right thing for you. Now, a lot of people think, well, maybe I'm just not with the right therapist. But here's the thing, and I really truthfully wish it was different than this. I don't have an exact measurement on this, but here's what I can tell you. Like I said, I do between 800 and 1,000 consultations a year. That's just the dead honest truth. And I always ask people, what have you tried so far? How did it work for you? And here's literally 95% of the time, probably if I were to go back through all of my catalog notes over the years, it probably would be close to 90 to 95%. I don't know an exact number, but the overwhelming majority of people tell me, it was valuable. But it was not sufficient. Yeah, they were nice, they were cool, but I just didn't really feel like I was getting anywhere. A very, 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 very small amount of people say, yeah, therapy's great. It's going well for me. So that's just the key thing to understand is the overwhelming majority of therapists are taught in the very similar way. Most of the people I consult with have tried multiple therapists, and you've probably gotten very similar results or lack of results with that different therapist. So that's just the key thing to understand. Okay. Now, if you've never, ever, ever, ever tried therapy, ever, then you're probably not even listening to me. You probably should just go ahead and give that a shot, and you'll know after 4 months if it's the right thing for you. So go ahead and do that. But I hear people all the time, they're like, oh yeah, I've tried 5 different therapists, but my insurance only covers therapy, so I'm going to sign up for another therapist. It's like, well, you're still dealing with the same issues you were 4 therapists ago, right? Why in the world are you thinking you're going to get a different result now? Oh, well, I don't know. That's just what you do, right? It's like, no, you don't have to just do that one thing. There's other options that you have available. Okay. Now to the third option. Okay. So the first option of dealing with anxiety, look at it biochemically. Option number 2, use the professional coping route with therapy or a counselor or something like that. The third option is the go it alone option. Okay. Now here's the thing with the go it alone option. There is a small percentage of people where the go it alone option is actually the viable option. Okay. So the viable situation, or excuse me, the situations in which you can actually handle it on your own would be sort of the following. Let me kind of give you a couple indicators. First of all, if the anxiety does not feel very severe, so if it's lower than a 5 out of 10, then that's usually a good indicator that you maybe only need 2 or 3 little adjustments, and maybe you can figure that out on your own, maybe you can't, okay? But that would be the first indicator. If you're dealing with really extreme anxiety, it's very, very unlikely you're going to be able to figure it out on your own, just simply by the fact that you're in such a heightened state. You're not even thinking clearly about almost anything. So your decision-making process is not even clear-minded. You know what I mean? So you need help immediately, very quickly, if it's at an extreme level. If it's at a lower level, you might be able to take your time. You might be able to meander a little bit, right? And maybe you can figure it out. That would be the first thing. The second situation would be if the number of triggers that you have is very small. So I don't know, for example, if you only feel anxiety when you talk with your sister, right? Then maybe you just need to work on your relationship with your sister, and maybe you can figure that out on your own, okay? But if you're having anxiety anytime you're at a party, for example, or anytime you get up to do a presentation at work, or anytime you go drive your car, now you got a problem. You have what we call a generalized pattern, not a generalized disorder, a generalized pattern, okay, that's showing up in a lot of different situations. And professional help is going to be really helpful for you to get that handled. The other situation where you might be able to handle it on your own is if it's not been around very long. Okay, so if the anxiety has only been around 6 weeks or less, then you might be able to get yourself back to square one. Okay, and it usually is a matter of doing the things exactly the same way you were doing them before the anxiety started to pop up. Because if it's less than 6 weeks, your nervous system has not fully ingrained and indoctrinated those new automatic responses yet. And so things are still plastic and viable enough where you, without the help of a professional, may I'm saying may. I'm not saying for sure. I'm saying may be able to handle it on your own. Okay. Now, if you're in any of those situations, but you would really like to like shortcut the process, then what I would recommend you do, honestly, is just like binge some free content from someone like me or someone else that you trust, and you might be able to figure it out. Like if you can't figure it out within like 30 days, then do something a little extra, right? And we offer one free coaching session for every member of our online community. So if you want some help, like I'm happy to help you, even if you don't become a client. Like I'm happy to help you, because what goes around comes around. It's all good. And you'll probably say good things about me to other people if I help you out, even if you don't become a client, right? So I'm happy to help you out. So you can always book a free coaching session with me. We do one, and usually within 25 minutes, I can get you more progress than you'll get with talk therapy in 2 or 3 months. Not me ego stroking. That's just what people tell me. Okay. So that's the third option, the go it alone option. Now here, the thing is, the go it alone option is not good for the majority of people. If your anxiety is severe, if it's chronic, if it's been around a long time, particularly if you have tried all sorts of different methods and approaches and all sorts of things like that, then it's a very good indicator that it's just not going to work very well for you. Because really, here's what it's like, right? Like the more you try to get out of your own head, the more in your own head you're going to get. And that's probably what you've ended up experiencing, right? Like the more you're Googling this and searching on YouTube and listening to podcasts and doing all this stuff, at a certain level, you kind of hit this point where you're like, okay, like all of this stuff is a little bit valuable, but none of this is like a full step by step plan, right? So eventually you're going to need that. And that becomes a big issue. That just becomes the sticking point. Okay. So the go it alone route is also the right route for you if you were doing something on your own before that was working exceptionally well and got you the level of mental health that you wanted before. So every once in a while, I'll do a consultation with somebody and I'll be like, hey, what else have you tried? And somebody might say, oh yeah, I used to meditate every day, twice a day. And gosh, when I did that, the anxiety basically was gone. And I'll just say, cool, like don't hire me, just go meditate then. You know what I mean? Like if you found something like that, they really truthfully gave you that level of results, why in the world would I try to like fix you if you're not broken? You know what I mean? Like just go do what you need to do. Like I don't want to take your money. Just go get your mental health fixed. So that's the type of situation where going it alone is the right thing, and when it's not usually the right thing. Okay. And then here's the fourth option. The fourth option is what I do with people. Now I've kind of shared a little bit about this, and you know by now that a big part of what I do is I help people learn to retrain the brain. But let me say a little bit about this. So here's the big thing. And I had an opportunity to become a therapist, and I decided not to become a therapist because I did not like the way that they looked at things. I did not like the assumption that somebody's going to have anxiety and depression or whatever their issue is for the rest of their life. Because I was living proof to myself that that was not true. So I knew that if I could overcome it, other people could overcome it. So I wasn't about to go spend a bunch of money for people to tell me, oh yeah, you can never live without anxiety and depression, because that's bullshit. And so I was only interested in listening to authorities who were going to show me different ways to help people live without anxiety and depression. So that's the first big thing you need to understand, is the first three routes, or I should say the first two routes, operate from the assumption that you're going to have anxiety for the rest of your life. And think about it like this. What do you think what is the level of result you can reasonably expect to get from a professional who is assuming that you're gonna be dealing with anxiety for the rest of your life? Do you see the inherent trap that puts you in? Even if they do their absolute best, even if they teach you everything they know, they're only gonna teach you stuff that is predicated on the assumption that you're still gonna have anxiety for the rest of your life. It's like running east as enthusiastically as you possibly can, hoping that you see a sunset. It just does not work. You could spend 60 years in therapy and you're not going to get any further than you've already gotten, because there's a core assumption baked into the process. So the first big thing that I do differently is I believe in your recovery. Wow, imagine that. I actually believe you can live a life without anxiety. And that enables me to have a much wider scope of things I can teach you and show you and do. So that's the first big thing to understand. Okay, and then the thing is, I've refined my method over the years to have 3 core pieces. Okay, now every client is different, and I'm going to cover like all the different situations this method can work for, the situations that it doesn't work for, and all that in a moment. But first of all, let me cover these 3 main phases, because this is kind of the overarching philosophy, and every client needs some amount of these 3. Okay, some amount of these 3. All right, so the very first thing that we got to do, like basically when we work into the process, when we get a client going in the very first month, typically what we do, sometimes I reverse the order of number 1 and number 2, depending on what the client needs, okay? But typically, probably 2/3 of the time, what I start off with is helping you literally retrain the brain to have automatic positive responses more often than automatic negative responses. Okay, so what that basically means, and I'm going to do a full week by week breakdown of like basically everything I cover here shortly. Okay, but basically to sum it up, okay, I help you map out exactly what your brain is doing that's causing you anxiety. There are 3 core things that every person's brain does that causes anxiety, 3 core patterns, 3 core habits inside of the mind, and then inside of those 3, there's 4 to 5 different variations. And so basically it's kind of like giving you like the combination lock to your own brain. Like I literally show you on my very first session with you as a client, okay, if you do this and you do this and you do this and this, you're going to feel anxiety at a level 10. And so what you're finally able to achieve in 60 minutes is you know every single internal pattern that's causing you your problems. Because right now, what you're probably only aware of is that you're having automatic negative feelings, and you're also aware of your triggers. And that's why most people blame their triggers, and they think, oh, I just need to stay away from people, or I need to stay away from driving, or I need to not public speak. Because the trigger is all that you can associate with causing your anxiety. The reality is, if we try to wrap you up in bubble wrap, you're going to live a very, very poor life. You're going to live a low quality life that's not going to get you the mental health you deserve by insulating you from your triggers. What we have to do is we have to change the brain's automatic negative responses to the triggers. Okay, so think of it like this. Imagine your brain is like a jukebox, and a jukebox has like 1,000 CDs in it. And I go up to that jukebox and I type in a sequence of numbers and letters. That's the trigger. Okay, I type in that sequence, and now there's a CD that is pulled forward and plays because I've typed in that particular sequence. So in other words, that CD, the pattern, is associated to the numbers and letters, the sequence, the trigger. Okay, so if I type in that sequence 100 times, it's gonna generate the same automatic response 100 times. So what do I do? Just stop playing music? Like tell nobody to ever push those buttons on the jukebox? That's probably not going to work. What I need to do is I need to change the damn CD, right? So what we do to rewire the brain, it's a very simple process, okay? You have to identify the patterns that are causing you the issue, because you cannot change something unless you identify it. You must interrupt the pattern, okay? Interrupting the pattern is like scratching the CD, okay? And then we must replace the pattern. We must get your brain to latch on to something different, to do something different automatically in response, because you cannot effectively eliminate a negative pattern unless you condition yourself to automatically have a positive one in response. And that is a big, big, big thing that therapists miss. They love to talk with you about the problems. They love to let you just talk about your automatic negative responses, but they never help you rewire yourself for the automatic positive ones. At most, they will point out to you what your automatic positive ones should be, but they never show you how to actually train the brain to have the automatic responses. So what I use is I use a ton of conditioning mechanisms. I shouldn't say a ton. I have a ton of conditioning mechanisms at my disposal, but I hand select the ones that match up with the client based off of their nervous system. There's 3 core types of nervous systems, and then their particular type of anxiety. Within each type of nervous system, there's about 6 to 8 types of anxiety. Okay? So in other words, some people get anxiety because their mind has a habit of constantly visualizing really bad things happening. So like if your mind is consistently imagining you getting in a car accident, for example, your mind automatically generates those images. And you intellectually knowing that you shouldn't generate those images is not enough. What I have to do is I have to give you what we call a visual rewiring technique, where literally we get your brain to imagine the car ride going safely and normally and happily instead, automatically. So that way, when your husband or wife is like, hey, let's go for a drive, you're like, yeah, absolutely, because your brain is visualizing good things instead of visualizing bad things. Now, another portion of the population is more auditory based, which means that you don't think in terms of pictures and movies, but you do have a lot of dialogue. You have a lot of internal thoughts, words, and there's a specific set of words that your brain automatically spits out. It's probably about half a dozen. You're probably aware of about 2 or 3, but there's usually about 5 to 6 that people are not aware of that are happening at a subconscious level. Basically, it'd be like your mind constantly whispering negative things to yourself all day, every day. And so guess what? We're never going to get rid of your anxiety unless we literally identify every single one of those things, right? And remember, if they're subconscious, it means you're not aware of them. So I have to help you become aware of them, because we cannot change it unless you become aware of it. Second, we have to interrupt those patterns. So we have to help you notice when they're occurring, and we use specific techniques to stop them from happening in the moment. And then I design for you exactly what you need to replace them with. And I show you how to replace it, how to condition it, how to make it automatic positive thoughts instead of automatic negative thoughts. And so it takes about a month for us to do that properly, because first I have to identify all of the weeds that need to be pulled out of your brain. And then I have to match you up with exactly what strategies to use to interrupt those patterns popping up. And then we have to decide what are we going to replace that with. And we go piece by piece by piece by piece. And we start with the heaviest hitters. So we start with the ones that cause you the most anxiety. So sometimes, not always, but sometimes with a client, I can get them as much as a 40% reduction in anxiety in their very first week. Now, you would be very right to be skeptical of that. You would think that, how in the world could I possibly promise that? I'm not promising it. I'm just saying it sometimes it happens. But think about it like this. You might already, because of what I just said, you might already know that there's a particular thing that your brain does automatically that makes you feel anxious, like a particular thing you keep visualizing or a particular thing your mind keeps saying over and over, right? Imagine if I could help you get rid of that and eliminate it for good, right? Could you see immediately how much lower your anxiety would be just getting rid of that one particular pattern? That's the power of conditioning over coping. Okay, so that is the first thing that I typically start out with, because I also want every client to get some quick wins. I want to make sure that you get more out of the first 60 minutes working with me than you have through all of your talk therapy. And that is what I very routinely hear over and over and over again from people. Okay, so that's our first big phase. We must rewire your brain to have automatic positive reactions. And we must shift out of the coping attitude and move into the conditioning attitude. That's phase 1. Okay, now phase 2 is we have to make sure that if there are any sources of anxiety that are happening at a subconscious level, that they are dealt with. Okay, now this has to do with reshaping your belief systems. Now, I know that sentence sounds kind of big picture. Like, what does that mean? Well, let me give you like 2 of the big classic examples. Everyone is a little bit different, but here are the 2 largest overall pictures examples, okay? What tends to happen for people, without them having even realized it, is that they have developed a belief system where they are requiring a incredibly high amount of certainty in order to live their life comfortably. So a classic example would be somebody gets in a car accident and then they start having major anxiety after the car accident. And it's because now all of a sudden they want to know with 100% total certainty that there is no chance in hell that they could ever have a car accident ever again. So their mind basically goes through every little what if. What if this? What if that? What if this? Well, how are the roads? How's the weather? Is there traffic outside? Well, what if this thing? What if that thing? And their mind is chasing down this imaginary point in time where they might theoretically get to this spot where there's no questions unanswered. There's no uncertainties whatsoever. They have total, complete, absolute certainty. But the reality, my friends, unfortunately, is that life is not certain. Driving, if we just take driving, for example, you cannot be completely, totally certain that you're never going to get in a wreck. If your subconscious belief is, I must be 100% certain that I will not get in a wreck or else I cannot drive. Guess what? You're not driving. You now have agoraphobia. You now are going to get anxious and become an anxious wreck every time you try to drive. Now, that may sound silly to you if that's not your particular pattern, but here's a lot of different variations. Health anxiety. Health anxiety is when you have a subconscious belief that says, I need to know with 100% certainty that there is absolutely nothing wrong with my body and that nothing could go wrong with my body in the future. That is the core belief that you're holding on to at a subconscious level. You have developed that belief, and the belief basically says, I have to have that certainty, or else I cannot function, or else I can't go to work, or else I can't think straight, or else I can't be present for my kids. I have to have that certainty. So your nervous system has done what we call overvaluing certainty. You have developed a belief where you require a higher amount of certainty than you will ever get. And that is what's creating anxiety. Anxiety is nothing more than your brain trying to chase down a thing that it believes it has to have, but it will never actually get. And certainty is the first of two of those big things. Now, there's all sorts of variations of this where people say, I don't need to be certain, but I need to feel safe, or I need to feel comfortable, or I need to feel in control, or whatever it is for you, okay? And it can be in all sorts of environments. It could be, you could have no anxiety anywhere except like doing a presentation at work. I just had a woman like this last month. She's totally fine. She can handle uncertainty everywhere else. But when it comes to her meetings at work, part of her believes I have to be totally certain about how this goes or I cannot do it. So long as she holds on to that belief in her subconscious, the anxiety will occur. So I have a process for getting rid of those beliefs and replacing it with a new belief. And so the belief that I replaced that one with for her was, I don't have to be totally certain about how things are going to go in order to present at work. And then we also supported that with 3 or 4 additional beliefs to create a belief system, because a belief system is far more powerful than one belief. Okay. To explain the belief process in more, that it usually takes me 4 to 6 weeks with somebody. Okay. So forgive me. It's just, I don't know another way to explain it for the format of this video. Okay. But that is a big thing I believe in, is dealing with the anxiety at the root. And this is a big thing people don't like about therapy. They're like, we're never really getting to the root cause. They don't even know what the root cause is, but they know they're not getting to the root cause. I'll tell you what the fucking root cause is. It's you have a belief system. You have a belief. You have a belief that you have to have something that you're never going to get or else you can't function. And we got to get rid of that belief. Now, I mentioned certainty is the first of those. The second type is something around being good enough. Okay, so being perfect enough, smart enough, handsome enough, strong enough, wealthy enough, successful enough. What are the other examples? Thin enough, smart enough, articulate enough, perform well enough, good enough at sports. I've seen it all. Okay, when I was working with an Olympic athlete a couple years ago, her big thing was her performance anxiety. First of all, she wanted to be totally certain about how her performance was going to go. And then second, she wanted to know that she was going to do as good as she did before. So she was all hung up on this comparison of being good enough. We had to get rid of those two things. When we got rid of those two things, the anxiety melted away and her confidence came about. So I guarantee you this. I would stake my entire reputation on it. I don't know who you are listening to this. Unless I've talked to you, I don't know who you are. But I guarantee you, your anxiety is occurring because either A, you are craving a higher amount of certainty than you are getting in your regular life, or B, there is a particular image of who you think you have to be that you keep trying to be, but you will never be. And it's like your mind is constantly grasping for this thing that you're never able to get. So what I have to help you learn how to do is the stopping of the grasping, and to finally feel a sense of peace of mind without the total certainty and without you trying to meet this unreasonable expectation about who you have to be. That's what I have to help you unlearn. Every single client has a version of those, and we have to pinpoint it and figure it out. And for many people, it started when they were a child. There's a very particular reason why. I show them where it came from. I show them what to replace it with. And then I help you decide what you want to believe. And anxiety can only exist when our mind is making a false assumption about reality. So I help you unlearn the lie and rewire the truth. And so that's what we do. So phase 1, recondition your brain to have automatic positive responses. Phase 2, deal with anxiety at the root cause by eliminating conflicts between how your belief systems believe life has to be and how life will inevitably be. That's phase 2. Okay, and once we do phase 1 and phase 2, that really accounts for like 80% of it. Phase 3 is all about relapse prevention. Now, every single client I graduate, we make sure that you have a really, really solid relapse prevention routine in place for you. There are certain things that apply to everybody, but everybody's is a little customized. In virtually no situations is it ever more than 15 minutes a day. But just like if you want to have good dental health, you brush your teeth every day. If you want to have good physical health, you exercise your body every day. If you want to have really good mental health, then you have to keep your brain trained. So it's kind of like going to the gym, right? If you've never been to the gym and now you want to build muscle, it's going to take you a couple months to build those muscles. You're going to need a personal trainer to help you out, to show you the workouts. Make sure you don't hurt yourself as you're building the muscle. Make sure you do it safely, sustainably, in a way that doesn't create injury or discomfort. Once you've developed those muscles over 3 to 4 months, now you just need a simple little routine to maintain your results. And maintaining the results is infinitely easier than generating the results, okay? And by the way, good news, doing my process of eliminating anxiety is leaps and bounds easier than getting in shape physically. So there you go. But those are the 3 core things about how I do things differently. Now, the other thing, again, is I give my clients instructions. I tell them, do this week 1, do this week 2, do this week 3. We've refined the process for 7.5 years, 600 clients, right? We have, I've redone the program in its entirety 3 times, right? We improve it all the time. Every year we get better at this. So we know what works, what doesn't work. There's nothing that's been thrown at us we have not seen before, okay? So those are the 4 main ways to tackle anxiety. Now, I said there's advantages and disadvantages to all of them, and I covered the advantages and disadvantages of the first 3. The disadvantage of my route, okay, I'm just going to be very honest. Well, first of all, the advantage is you learn a set of skills that you can carry with you for the rest of your life, that you can teach your kids, right? That you can teach your spouse, that you can impart to other people, that you can take into the workplace. Once you finally learn what the source of your anxiety is, and you learn the user's manual for your own brain, nobody can ever take that away from you. No one has ever been able to make me feel anxious or depressed ever again. I have dealt with all sorts of shit in my life. My wife got breast cancer. We've moved multiple times, many griefs and losses in the family, totally switched careers, built this business from scratch. I mean, whatever, all the different life challenges that you've experienced, you know, it happens, right? Life is going to throw challenges at you, but never have I ever sunk to that level that I was at before ever again, because I will never unlearn what I have learned. I'll never go back to that place again. And it's the same way for the people who really commit to learning this process. So it works incredibly well when you actually do this, okay? The other advantage to it as well is it happens pretty quickly. So when you actually apply this, it takes us about 3 months, right? And in many cases, it's shorter than that. In some cases, it's slightly longer than that, but not usually. So whenever you actually get this done, it's kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off, really, which is the really cool thing. And that's why we like to say the program is really for people who are Band-Aid rippers and not toe dippers, okay? So if that sounds like you, then cool, game on. The only disadvantage, if you want to call it a disadvantage, is that it requires a little bit of work up front, right? You got to put in a little bit of time, a little bit of work. You got to learn a few things. You got to practice a few skills. It's really not that hard. It's really not that complicated, but you just got to be willing to put that little bit of work in, right? And if you're not willing to do that and you want to go the path of least resistance, then yeah, go do some medications or whatever. But if you're okay with putting in a little bit of effort for a lot of freedom on the back end, it's absolutely worth it, okay? The only other disadvantage, if you want to call it a disadvantage, is, again, I'm not going to coddle you. Like, I'm going to do the compassionate thing, which is lead you to where you need to be. And I'm always going to have your best interests at heart. And of course, we're going to have a lot of fun. Like, I'm not some hard ass, you know what I mean? Like, I'm we're gonna crack jokes. I'm gonna be supportive of you. Of course, I'm gonna point out what you're doing well. I'm gonna reinforce you, but you're gonna have structure. You're gonna have accountability, right? And if you're not up for that, then there's just no way I can help you. You know what I mean? So that's who it's for, and that's who it's not for. So if you want to apply, we are open up for promotion right at this moment. This is closing tomorrow at midnight. We're giving away 5 free bonuses for promotion. So if you want to apply, just go ahead and put the words apply in the comments. And what will happen is I'll shoot you a message a little bit later on. We'll set up a quick little phone call. We'll make sure it's the right fit for you. And then I'll go through all the details with you, basically. Okay. So if you want to apply, just go ahead and do that at any time. All right. Now, I've covered the method and the philosophy. Let's cover what does it take to succeed? Because this is a big question that people have. Like, okay, how do I know I can be successful? And what's your success rate? And all that sort of thing. And so here's the thing I can tell you. I have not, we don't track like, here's who was successful, here's who was not, and all that. I don't have an exact number for that because the overwhelming majority of people have been very, very successful. But here's what I will tell you, and this is the hand on my heart, complete, total, honest truth, is every single client who has done 3 simple things has been successful. And the only clients I have ever had who have not been like totally, fully out of your mind, super successful, they haven't done one of these 3 things. Okay. So we have a policy where unless you're like, if you're not willing to agree to these 3 things, just don't even apply. You know what I mean? Like, cause I want you to be successful, and they're really, really simple. They're really basic, but you'd be amazed. Some people are just not willing to take their mental health seriously enough and do it. So here's the first one. You just have to be coachable. You just have to be open-minded and willing to try what we teach you at least once. So there is a little trial and error with what we do because it is conditioning-based, response training. So of course we're going, at this point I can like tell you pretty quickly, like, hey, do this, do this, do this, it'll work. And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be right. But there's a little tweaking, there's a little customization that has to happen each time. So you got to be willing to just give everything a very good, solid try. Now, nothing that we're ever going to have you do is going to be really strenuous. It's not going to be very hard. It's not going to be that difficult. We don't do the whole exposure therapy thing. Okay, it's really, really simple stuff. It's usually something like, hey, instead of saying this particular word whenever you are in this situation, say this instead. It's usually something like that. Or it's like, hey, here's a little daily ritual I want you to do. I want you to make sure that you answer these 3 questions, because these 3 questions will get your brain to develop new neural pathways of thinking, and do these 3 questions for the next 2 weeks. It's usually things like sort of like that. It's never anything like, hey, I want you to go do a cold plunge or something. You know what I mean? It's nothing like crazy, okay? So you just got to be willing to try everything. And as long as you try everything, you try something and it doesn't really work for you, that's fine. Then we'll customize it further. We always find the winning combination in the end, but we can never find the winning combination if you're not willing to try. You know what I mean? So that's number 1. If you're willing to do that, cool, good to go. That's honestly probably 51% of it. Number 2, you got to be willing to put in a little bit of time to do the work. Okay. So there's a little bit of homework, or actually I have a client recently who's like, you know what, Ty, I'm going to call it growth work, not homework. And I kind of like that. So you got to be willing to set aside about 4 to 5 hours per week for your growth work. That can be customized. Now, let me be clear, because a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh my gosh, 4 to 5 hours, where am I going to find that? First of all, if you're taking your mental health seriously, you'll find the time, okay? Because you find the time for everything that you take seriously. That's the real truth of the matter. If it is an absolute must for you to get 9.5 hours of sleep every night, then that's what you're going to get. If it is a must for you to never miss your Netflix show every night, then that's what you're going to get. If it is a must for you to learn the techniques to finally overcome anxiety and spend 30 to 40 minutes a day doing that, then that's what you're going to do. So everybody's got the same amount of time every single day, but people have different amounts of priorities, and that's just the truth of the matter. So don't tell yourself you don't have time. Okay, but the other thing is we've made it as flexible as it possibly can be for you. So you can like do it whenever, wherever you want, basically. So you could do like 30 minutes a night after work. You could do it on your lunch break. You could do it on the weekends. We have some people who do like 2 or 3 hours in a day on a Saturday because that's what they like to do. You can mix and match. It's all good. Doesn't matter. But basically that time is so that you can go into the video lessons, take some notes, do some assignments, practice some skills, And then, of course, you're going to have some appointments with me. It's really simple, okay? 4 to 5 hours per week for about 90 days, or as long as it takes for us to get your anxiety handled. Once the anxiety is handled, all you will need to do is have a relapse prevention routine in place that takes like 10 minutes a day max, like 5 to 10 minutes a day. Super, super simple, okay? And that's it. If you're willing to put in that minimal amount of time, you can succeed. You can do very, very well with this, okay? And the third and final one is you got to stick it out to the end. Because here's what ended up happening early on in my career. Early on in my career, I used to just do the brain retraining stuff. And that worked really well for a lot of people. But then I realized, man, there's a deeper issue here that I got to deal with. And it was at the belief system level. So then I dealt with the belief system stuff. And I was like, damn, this is cool. We're helping many more people. People are getting way better results. This is great. But I realized that unless I had that third final pillar really locked in, and I taught them that about how to prevent relapse, then there was a chance that things might come back. And that's when our client success really skyrocketed. So when you commit to sticking through it all the way to the end, it's like, you know, how good would it be if you got 3/4 of an oil change, right? Like that doesn't really do you any good. Or like 3/4 of an operation, right? Like why would you ever sign up for that? So in the same way, you need to be willing to commit for the full 3 months. You need to be ready to do this thing. Like if you can't rip the Band-Aid off 75% and then just keep tugging at the last 25%. That's like, no one wants that. We got to rip the thing all the way off. And that means you got to learn everything you need to know from start to finish so that you can carry the torch of your mental health forward on your own. Which, by the way, I should have pointed out is another big advantage of what we do. When you go the therapy route, you're very often dependent on therapy long term. When you go the route I teach you, our entire process is designed for you to get rid of my ass and be able to go live your life how you want to live it. So you are the one in charge of your mental health long term. That's the really cool thing. Okay? So that's what it takes to succeed. All right, next is what's included. So what is included in this program? What are the nuts and bolts? How does it work? Okay, so real simple, here's how it goes. The very first there's basically two main pillars to the program, okay? The first big pillar of the program is I'm working with you directly one-on-one, all right? So I never hand you off to another coach. I am the only person who does 100% of all of the coaching in my company. I am the only person you'll be working with directly, okay? So all of your appointments will be with me. Now, we will have regular one-on-one appointments for a minimum of 90 days. A lot of people ask, well, how many sessions is it? And how long are the sessions? And how frequent are they? Okay, it's very different than therapy. It's not at all like therapy. With therapy, you do these sessions where they're like 60 minutes, and sometimes you get somewhere, sometimes you don't. If you feel like you're getting somewhere, then the call is ended when it's ended, and you're screwed until next week or every 2 weeks or whatever. Sometimes you didn't get anywhere in 60 minutes, and now the call is ended, right? With me, it's very different. Every single session I do with people is radically more productive than a therapy session. We create real insights, real breakthroughs in real time, and then I always make sure that you have very clear, actionable steps at the end of every single call. You will never, ever, ever be like, what do I do? You'll know exactly what you need to do. Okay, and then in the off chance that you ever, like we run out of time on a session and you have more questions or concerns, I will always follow up either via email or via voice note or via text, or we will set up an additional time. It is of paramount importance to me that every client knows what they need to do to be shifting the needle continuously. And so that's how we operate. Now, with that said, my philosophy is I will spend as much one-on-one time with a client as they need, so long as it is actually valuably spent. And what I mean by that is we're not going to just take up an hour just to take up an hour to call it an hour coaching session, okay? If we get everything you need to know in 45 minutes, and usually we hit like a sweet spot where it's like, okay, you now know enough to go and implement and get to the next stage, but if I tell you anything extra, it's going to be too much information, right? So we usually hit that sweet spot at some point, and then that's where it naturally comes to a close. But if we need extra time, then that's fine. I'll set up extra time. Because again, therapy is a service. When you pay a therapist, you are paying for a service. When you do my program, you're enrolled in a solution-based program, not a service-based program. We don't let you go as a client until you succeed. And if you aren't seeing results in your very first week, you walk away with a complete total refund. So there's no risk whatsoever. The number one priority we have is to your success and your happiness and your satisfaction. So there's no chance that you're going to fail if you stick with it. All right, so that's the first thing. I work with you one-on-one, and every client's different. My first session is usually an hour to an hour and a half, and then I usually do either like weekly appointments, like shorter bite size, so that we can just kind of tackle things bite size each week, like a little bit of progress, a little bit of momentum each week. Or for some people, it's better for us to do longer appointments spaced out a little more. It just depends, okay? In phase 1, you need different things from me than when you're in phase 2. When you're in phase 2, I'm usually working with you more in depth. Phase 3 is pretty cut and dry. It gets wrapped up in about 2 weeks. So it's all custom for you. It's all dependent on you. I will work with you as much as you need, okay? That's the long and short of it. And then here's the thing that no other program has the balls to do. I've never seen another program that does this. We do this, and we're the only people in the industry who do this. And we provide a written guarantee of satisfaction, which, in fact, we provide 2. Firstly, the core written guarantee of satisfaction that we provide year-round for our program is if you do not feel satisfied that you have reduced your anxiety by at least, okay, so as in at a minimum, 75% within 90 days, I will continue to work with you one-on-one for free until you do. Now, I don't know if you can kind of do the math in your head here, but it would be silly for me to guarantee something like that unless my method really worked really well. Okay, because otherwise I'd just be working for everybody for free, and I'd have a ton of free clients that are not successful, and it'd be a total pain in my butt. So I put my heart where my mouth is. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, I will work with you until you absolutely get that done. Now, the follow-up question a lot of people have is, first of all, how do you define a 75% improvement? Well, the way we define it is that you are feeling, we have a term we call your emotional center of gravity. So think right now, like, how much do you feel anxiety on a weekly basis? So if we took up all of your waking hours and we said, what percentage of the time are you feeling anxious? For many of you, it would be like 80, 90%, something like that. And so the promise that we make is that we will make sure that the anxiety is gone from your daily life at least 75% of the time. So that means that only 25% or much less, in many cases it's literally 0, okay? 25% or less of the time, anxiety is still there. 75% or more of your waking hours, there is no anxiety. If you do not feel satisfied that you have hit that threshold within 90 days, I will continue to work with you one-on-one until you do. Now, the majority of our clients well exceed that, by the way, but that is what we're comfortable promising in writing, just in case I have a particularly challenging, difficult client. Okay, a lot of people also ask, well, wait a minute, what's the catch? There is a catch. The catch is you have to simply abide by those 3 requirements. You got to do your homework or your growth work. You got to follow the instructions we give you, right? Real simple. And you just got to basically have an attitude of sticking with it, right? So long as we can see that you're being a good client, you're sticking with it, then no problem. I will literally work with you as long as it takes. Now, 80% of our clients graduate in 90 days, no problem. And most of them do much better than a 75% improvement. The remaining 15 to 20%, it kind of fluctuates month to month, but that smaller percentage that requires a little extra time, almost always we get everything wrapped up within a 4th month. Okay, I really cannot, actually, no, that's not true. I can remember one time this past year, I had to work with somebody a 5th month, and that was fine. I was totally cool with it. The reason we had to do it is she had a big major life interruption. I'm not going to share the details, but it threw her for a whirlwind. She needed some extra help. I was happy to help her for a 5th month, and we got her graduated. It was fine. It didn't cost her an extra red cent, but we got it done, okay? So, again, that's it. You're paying for a solution, and that's what you're going to get. So we'll do what we got to do to make that happen. Now, for our particular promotion, we are doing an additional written guarantee of satisfaction as well, because a lot of times people will have this question of like, okay, cool, but what if I get 6 to 8 weeks into the program and it's not working. Like, I don't want you to keep working with me for free one-on-one if your method is just not even working in the first place. So how can I even be sure it's the right thing for me and it's going to work? And so that makes sense. I totally get that. And so what we're doing for this particular promotion right now is we're also offering a completely free, it's a guarantee. It's a free guarantee. I don't know why I said that. But we're offering an additional written guarantee of satisfaction, which is a 7-day unconditional money-back guarantee. And basically what that means is if you're approved to be a client and you enroll, what's going to happen is you and I will set up our very first session together, and you're going to go through the very first week of the curriculum of the program. You're going to start applying the tools in the first week. If you do not see results in your first week, if you do not feel totally sure and confident that you are in the right place with the right person, this is the best decision you've ever made for your mental health. If you're not feeling it, you can walk away and you pay nothing. We refund you 100% fully, and it's no problem. Because I know a lot of you guys are like, well, how do you want to make sure that I'm making the right decision for me? And I agree, you should absolutely make the right decision for you. But the only way you're going to know if it's the right decision is if you actually do the damn thing. There's no way you in your own head are ever going to be able to answer every single possible question about whether the program is the right thing for you. Eventually, you got to jump into the pool, right? And we want to also make sure that you have a risk-free way to do that. So that's what we've created for you. And again, I'll put my heart where my mouth is. Like, I will get you results so that way you believe. And then you'll commit, and then we'll get you the full way there, and we'll make sure you get you to the finish line. So you're covered by both guarantees. So it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you a single thing to make sure that this is the right thing for you. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So that's the one-on-one work with me. That's pillar number 1, okay? Pillar number 2 is in addition to working with me one-on-one, we also know that you need a system in place to maintain the results. And what I wanted to do, I hated the idea that people would be in therapy for 10, 20, 30 years. Like that you're paying co-pays and insurance and all this stuff for something that's not getting you results. Or for many people, it's not costing you financially, but it is costing you time. It's costing you energy. It's just a cost. It's a big cost. And I hated that idea. I wanted a real, true solution. I wanted something where when somebody made a decision to work with me and my team, that it was a done deal, that their mental health was handled. And that not that life was ever going to be perfect, right? But that like definitely the issue of their anxiety was good and handled for good. And I wanted to make sure that you had the ability to get help if you ever had a question or a concern or anything like that. And so what we've provided is a whole series of safety nets that are behind you for the rest of your life. So you invest your time and energy and capital one time, and then you get myself and my team in your corner behind your back for the rest of your life in the variety of different ways. So number 1, you get access to our full anxiety elimination curriculum. Every single skill, every single thing I've used on myself and with clients is shared and taught with you. It's all laid out for you in a course format. The course is video-based, but we also have written transcripts of all the videos. You also get slides. There's a workbook. We've basically optimized it for every learning style you can imagine. You can access it on a computer, on a smartphone, on a tablet, anywhere you want. Doesn't matter. Okay, so it's all there for you. You'll have access to that forever. You'll also have access to all the improvements that we make to it. So every couple of years, I usually refilm the whole thing. Just a couple of weeks ago, we just finished a workbook, and the workbook is awesome. I love it. It first of all keeps all your notes organized. It's got lots of fill-in-the-blank stuff, so it takes the process of taking notes and makes that easier. But it also has lesson summaries of every single video. So now you get to watch the video, you can follow along with the transcripts if you want, and then you get a summary that goes over the key points. So you can get the information in your brain another way, and then you can also refer back to that for a quick refresher if you ever need to. Really, really cool. So that is all available to you. And by the way, that workbook, we just launched it like last week, but now that it's launched, we literally gave it to all of our old clients for free. All of our 600 people we've worked with now have it, right? Even though they didn't pay for it way back then, we just gave it to them. So any new stuff we come out with, you'll have access to. And then not only do you have access to that core curriculum, which is really like the full roadmap, it is basically the very shortened, very condensed version of what I did a long time ago to get my mental health in check, as well as a lot of updates and enhancements. You have access to that. You also have the ability to attend any and all of the group calls that we do in the future. So we typically host those about once a month. And the way that those are organized is I'm on Zoom, and then all of our clients can join. And then basically I'll teach something new. So you get some brand new content that no one else has heard. It's only for clients. Something brand new that I've learned or a new technique I'm using. And then what I'll do is I'll open it up for Q&A, and I'll do like speed coaching basically. So people can raise their hands and they got any question in the world, and I'll help them, and I'll do a little intervention with them, give them what they need to know. So everyone's learning from everybody, rapid fire. It's a really, really powerful experience. So you can attend those live, as many as you want for the rest of your life. Okay. Or if for any reason you can't make one of those, you can submit your question in writing leading up to the group call. We'll send you the notifications you need, and I'll answer it on the group call. And then you have access to all of the recordings, okay? Including when you join, you'll have access to all of the pre-existing recordings too. So that's a huge wealth of knowledge and information, because you can honestly change your life really fast by watching how I help coach somebody else. It's pretty powerful. Okay, the next thing you have access to, because some people don't want to do group calls, right? They don't want to hop on the group calls or whatever. And we want to make sure you can get your questions answered however you want. So you also have lifetime access to email support. So you can write into us on anything mental health related except an emergency. Okay, so you don't email us and say like, hey, my cousin, is like talking about hurting himself. Like you need to call, an emergency service for that. But anything else, write into us via email, and we will give you customized coaching via email. Okay. And as of right now, I'm the one that replies to every single one of my clients. That might get outsourced eventually one day. I don't know. But as of right now, that's me currently. And then also we have a private client-only Facebook community. So you can post in that group, and you can get feedback from me, my team, and then anybody else who's a client who's been a little further along in the journey than you. Okay. So that's a pretty powerful thing as well. So we give you all of those things for life. You've got access to that, right? So that way you can always get a question answered if it were to ever occur. But honestly, we don't really hear much from our clients who've graduated except like updates of good news. Like I'll get a lot of random texts like, hey, I just got this new job, or hey, I just had a kid, or that type of thing. Very, very rarely do we hear like, hey, I'm struggling, or this type of thing. It's very rare. And if and when it ever occurs, it's always because somebody temporarily deviated from one of those three things we talked about before. So maybe there was a specific instruction we gave them, and they just like kind of fell out of the habit of using that. They just need a tiny, quick little adjustment, and they're good to go. Right? So that's usually what it is. It's pretty basic stuff. Okay? So that's what's included. Now, the next thing I'm covering, how the guarantee works. So I basically covered the 75% and 90-day guarantee. I think I covered everything about that. And then the 7-day unconditional guarantee. Okay, so you're protected on both sides of that. So there's no risk whatsoever in trying it out. You get to totally verify that this is the best thing you've ever done. And if you don't feel within that first 7 days this is the best decision you've ever made for your mental health, cool. You get all your money back, no risk whatsoever, no problem at all. And then if you decide to stick with it after those 7 days, you'll have already gotten great results. You'll have already been feeling fantastic. You'll have already known, wow, this is absolutely what I want and what I need. And so from there, I'll stick with you all the way through to the finish line. And we'll make sure the anxiety gets really, truly handled and reduced far more than you ever have before. Okay? So that's how those guarantees work. I think someone asked as well, like, is there a limit to the one-on-one coaching? No, there's no limit so long as you're following instructions and you're doing your homework, basically, right? So if at any point you, like if, let's say it's month 4.5 and I gave you a set of instructions and you said, yeah, I know I should have done that, but I didn't do that. Then I'm going to say, okay, well, our time is up, So that's the only catch. So you do have to be committed to applying what we told you, okay? All right, now next is what does the journey look like? So let me cover that. Then I'm going to cover how to apply. And then depending on how much time we have, I'm going to do some FAQs, okay? So I told you what the first week basically looked like, but let me recount it. So once you are accepted as a client, All right, we're going to set up our very first session. When we set up our very first session, I'm going to do a process with you that we call pattern mapping. I'm going to map out for you exactly the 10 to 12 key internal mental patterns that are causing your anxiety, and I'm going to show you exactly what to replace them with. Then at the conclusion of that call, I'm going to give you a very simple 3-step process to start to rewire the brain. You're going to use that very simple 3-step process over the course of the next 7 to 14 days, week 1 to 2. Okay, that process works very, very well. Historically, it usually gets people a minimum of a 10 to 20% anxiety reduction in their first 1 to 2 weeks. It can go all the way up to 30, 40, 50%. I have seen that a handful of times. Okay, so you use that process. That's what I do 70 to 80% of the time for the first week with a client. Every once in a while, if it really makes sense for a client, what I will actually do is I will do a process where I help them pinpoint the true cause of their anxiety originally. Everyone thinks they know what the cause of their anxiety was, but 99% of people have it dead wrong. I'll show you what the real true cause of the anxiety was. And then what I'll do is I'll literally map out for you every single internal conflicting belief that you have that is causing you anxiety. And this is usually like a huge revelation for people, because once they see it, they go, holy shit, I finally know where every single source of tension and anger and anxiety has ever occurred in my entire life. And then we finally are able to see the entire list of things that we need to change and shift. And so it's almost like mapping out, like everyone talks about this whole thing of like doing the work, right? It's like mapping out, this is the exact plan of all the work that needs to be done. And then we would shift into the belief elimination and replacement phase. So like I said, every once in a while I switch phase 1 and phase 2, but more often than not, we're going to start you off with brain retraining techniques, because that's just what's going to get you quick wins and is going to help you see that you absolutely can get this done, because I want to get your confidence up. I want you in your first week to be like, holy shit, I actually can do this. So that's why we start out with that. Okay, that's week 1. Week 2, let me return to my notes here real quick because I got my syllabus up here. Okay, so that's week 1. Week 2 is where we start going into the 3 forces that control your emotions. So this is where we start breaking it down by which nervous system you have, and we start breaking down the very specific nuanced patterns that you're dealing with. So we start out general, right, with the 3 key things everyone needs to know to shift their anxiety, and then we get very customized and very specific. So for example, if you keep visualizing horrific things happening, and that's a big part of your anxiety, we show you how to rewire that. If you have internal automatic negative dialogue that's happening that you can't seem to get rid of, we show you exactly how to get rid of that in a 3-step process. If you're more of a kinesthetic person, so you don't necessarily have visualizations or auditory components, but you really feel these overwhelming feelings, like physical feelings in your body, then we show you exactly how to rewire that. So that's where we start to get more customized in week 2, okay? So that's what we start to break down there. Week 3, we call accessing resourceful emotions, okay? So basically what I do in week 3 is I map out for you, we have all of these different comparisons of a negative emotion and then the opposite negative emotion, or excuse me, the opposite positive emotion. So for example, we have stress/procrastination versus motivation and follow through. So if you're having issues with procrastinating and feeling stressed out and you're having trouble feeling motivated and following through, we have a whole lesson on that where we break down that exact pattern. We show you, okay, these are the 4 to 5 things your brain is doing that's making you feel stressed and procrastinated. Here's exactly what to train it to do, where you can literally, with a flick of your fingers, you can feel motivated and start following through right away. So we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9... We've got about 20 of these different pairings. So this is where it gets even more customized based off of your needs. So for example, if you are having follow-through issues, we walk you through that exact pattern process, show you exactly how to stop the procrastination, exactly how to follow through. We have one on anxiety versus confidence. So if you are wanting to feel more confidence in your life, we show you the exact formula to do that. And I know it sounds weird to say that it's a formula, but it's like driving a car. Like almost all cars operate the same way. If you drive them a certain way, you'll get a certain result. Right now, some cars are stick shifts and some cars are automatics and blah, 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 blah. Some need special fuel. So there are some variations from person to person to person. But what creates confidence in one human being's nervous system will create confidence in your nervous system too. We just have to make a couple little tweaks to make sure it works for you. So like with each one of these things, I'm literally on a session with you showing you, okay, do this and do this and do this. Okay, cool. See how that immediately makes you feel anxious and how you don't want to follow through on things? Okay, cool. Now do this. Okay, now do this. Now do this little thing right here. See how now you feel confident and you're like, holy shit, I feel confident. So we show you in real time how to generate the feelings that you want to generate. And more importantly, we show you exactly how to activate it piece by piece by piece. Okay, we have one on depression versus joy. We have one on anger and trauma versus healing and love. We have one on low self-esteem versus high self-esteem. We have one on grieving versus healing. We have one on substance use versus healthy habits. We have one on bipolar and mood swings. Okay, so that's all week 3. Whatever you need, we break it down. And we make sure that you have absolute clarity by the end of week 4 on the user's manual for your own brain. You will finally know, okay, if I do this and this and this, that makes me feel anxious. So I'm not going to do those things. I'm going to do this and this and this because that makes me feel confident, or that makes me feel exactly how I want to feel. So we are literally showing you how to operate your nervous system for the very first time. Week 4 is just a continuation of this. So this is where we dig into the more nuanced stuff, because we get questions all the time of like, is this, can this work for me if I've got OCD? We have a whole thing on OCD. Can this work for me if I've got agoraphobia? We have a whole thing on agoraphobia. Does it work for me if I've got depersonalization? We've got a whole thing covering depersonalization and derealizations. We even have a thing on schizophrenia. We have a thing on trauma. So a lot of the majority of our clients have had some kind of trauma. We help you show exactly how to get through that, how to heal that. So that's the end of week 4. Really, really powerful stuff. Okay. Now that concludes phase 1, which is retraining and rewiring the brain to have automatic positive responses. Then we go into week 5, okay, where we start phase 2. Phase 2 is, again, uncovering the root of the anxiety and making sure that we handle it at the source. So we show you where the real source of your anxiety is from video number 1. If it's been with you for almost your whole life, we show you exactly where it came from. A lot of people say, oh, my childhood, but that's not exactly right. We show you exactly where that is. We show you the 7 different types of anxiety you could have developed, which one yours is, what type of belief systems are creating that type of anxiety. And basically it had to do with you creating a role of who you thought you had to be, probably at a pretty young age. Or if you developed anxiety later on in life, then we show you exactly what that's all about. Then we start the process of identifying every single belief in your subconscious that is causing you anxiety, and then mapping out exactly what to replace it with. Okay, that is basically what we're doing in week 5. Well, in week 5, we're helping you uncover all of your old negative beliefs. In week 6, we're literally helping you eliminate those beliefs. I have a process that is proprietary. I've refined it over the years, and it is literally on how to eliminate limiting beliefs. It is an 11-step process. And I like to call it the shovel for short, because it's like going to a garden with a big giant weed and you dig the shovel in and you pluck that weed out and it's gone for good. If you really follow this process, people feel like huge amounts of relief coming off their shoulders when they do this process. It's one of the keystone elements in the entire program. And the beauty is, once you learn how to do this, you now know how to effectively identify and get rid of a limiting belief whenever they pop up ever again. So that's a really powerful thing. It's a skill that you can take with you for the rest of your life. Module 7, week 7, is all about creating your new set of beliefs. Your new model of the world is what we call it. So we figured out all the garbage that caused you all this anxiety before. We showed you how to interrupt it, and then now we're going to show you exactly what to replace it with, and I'm going to guide you on how to create that. So for the very first time, you're going to feel like you're the author of your own life story. Like you are actually, like you may have spent your whole life trying to be a people pleaser or a perfectionist or trying to achieve things all the time or whatever you did that caused you all this anxiety. And now you're going to be shown that there's a whole series of other options that will make you feel a lot more freedom, a lot more joy, a lot more love. And we walk you through literally how to basically recreate your belief systems and your identity. It's a really, really powerful stuff, really powerful stuff. So that is in Module 7, Week 7. And that concludes Phase 2, okay, which is really about dealing with the source of the problem, which has to do with your subconscious beliefs. That leads us into the final phase and the final 2 weeks, which is in Week 8. We call it Taking Charge of Your Future. And basically, we walk through the 7 areas of your life that you need to make sure that you have some kind of a plan for to ensure that you don't relapse. We call that the wheel of life. And then we also walk you through how to make sure that this whole identity of being an anxious person is something you do not even identify with. How to literally go from, I'm a person who struggles with anxiety, to I am a person who overcame anxiety, where you feel that in your bones. Okay, that's a really, really powerful lesson, one of my favorites. And then that leads us into Module 9. And Module 9 is a little boring in the sense that it's just kind of logistical. It's very much like it's all about relapse prevention. There are only 4 causes of relapses. Only 4. Every single time I've ever seen a relapse, there's only 4 reasons for it. And we show you exactly what those 4 are. We show you exactly how to make sure you never have one of those. We make sure you have a customized daily conditioning routine to keep yourself on track. We walk you through an exact process of how to handle any curveball events that might occur in your future, because they are going to happen, like a job loss or a death in the family or the birth of a child or whatever. Those are events that very often create anxiety for people, but they don't have to if you learn how to handle them appropriately. So we walk through an exact process on what to do there. We walk through the 20 different ways that people can feel stuck. There's only 20 ways that the human nervous system can ever feel stuck, and there's 20 solutions to each, well, a solution for each one of those. So we walk you through that. We walk you through what we call your global solution. Your global solution is something that you can do in 10 seconds anytime you might ever feel anxious ever, and it will snap you out of anxiety like that. So we walk you through that in your final week. And then we walk through what type of anxiety is normal, what type of anxiety is not normal, how to differentiate between the two of those, how to process both of those. We walk you through that. And then we just have a couple lessons on how to, like, what are the key points from the program you need to remember, and how do you lock this in for the rest of your life, okay? That's basically the week by week by week. Now, you notice there's 9 weeks in the class, but I'm doing 90 days of coaching with you at a minimum. And that's because sometimes people have a concern of, what if I miss a week, or what if I need to take vacation, or whatever. So people had to take like a week off, and that's fine. No problem, right? Like, we just make sure you've got a plan and you're good to go. So it's okay. So that's the week by week by week process. And then at the very end, I make sure you're feeling good. I make sure you feel really comfortable and confident, ready to move forward on your own. Make sure you have no unanswered questions. And then when you tell me you're ready to go, we graduate you. That's it. That's how it works. And then again, remember, every step of the way, I'm working with you on one-on-one sessions. So you're going through a little bit of material, you're applying the skills, you're applying the process, and then I'm workshopping with you. I'm figuring out what's working, what's not working. I'm, giving you reassurances. I'm helping you solve problems. I'm helping make sure that you're applying the right information. I'm helping you ignore the irrelevant information, right? All that stuff it's all customized for you. Okay. So I'm going to go over how to apply, and then we'll cover frequently asked questions here, okay? So if you want to apply, we are doing a promotion. So again, we've got the core program, and then we've got key bonuses that we're giving completely for free. So, well, first of all, the big bonus number 1 is we're doing a 25% discount on the enrollment fee just for the next 36 hours. We opened it up 2 days ago. The deadline is tomorrow at midnight. Okay, so we're doing a 25% discount on the enrollment fee just for this week. Number 2 is we are giving away my Relationship Mastery program. This is all about how to deal with any and all issues pertaining to relationships. It is especially very effective and healthy and helpful with romantic relationships, but we also cover how to make sure that you can rebuild or recreate effective friendships, family relationships, how to heal from past trauma from relationships, how to develop the incredibly strong communication skills you need. We go over the only 4 causes of divorce. We go over how to prevent that. We go over how to make sure you can have a relationship with lots of love and lots of passion. Okay, so that's a really cool bonus. That one is typically $400 just for the class alone. We're giving that away to anybody who applies this week for free. The next one we're giving away is our Financial Anxiety Annihilation Program. That's a very short but very powerful program. Walks you through exactly how to get rid of financial anxiety. A lot of people have financial anxiety even when they got lots of money. And that's a lot of our clients. They're actually doing well financially, but their brain tells them they're not doing well. So we walk you through an exact process so you can feel totally safe, secure, confident about your finances. You can have a real solid plan, and that the future is one you feel really solid about. That one is typically $400. We're giving that away for free this week. We're giving away our Overwhelm Elimination Program as a fourth bonus, which is a very short 2-hour class, very short but very powerful. It's all about what causes procrastination and a lack of follow through, and how can you make sure that you follow through on the things that matter each and every day and feel motivated to do so. It basically walks you through the exact daily routine that I optimized for myself a long time ago to do the things that matter and that we give to our elite clients. I tend to give this to like CEOs and business owners, people who got a lot on their plate and they need to get a lot done in a short period of time. So it does show you how to get more done in less time and how to eliminate stress from your daily to-do list. That's usually $200. We're giving that away for free. And then the fifth and final bonus I mentioned before is we're doing a completely unconditional 7-day money-back guarantee. You get to go through your very first session with me, go through the very first week of the program, confirm that you love it before you commit. And if you're not in love with it, you get all your money back. You get a total refund. You get to walk away. 5 key bonuses, all happening. The deadline, however, is tomorrow night. And this is the only week that we're doing that. Our enrollment fees are actually going up. That's just the God's honest truth. We're raising our fees. It's been 6 years. We've had the same fees for a long time. Can't do it anymore. So we're changing that. So this is the last time you'll be able to enroll at this particular fee ever. So if you want to apply, go ahead and put apply below. And then I'm going to cover some FAQs. So the first one is, how do I know this program will actually work for me when other methods haven't? I've tried so many other things before. Why should I believe this will be different? Well, the first thing to understand is that almost everything you've tried before is almost certainly a coping strategy. And so the things that we teach, that I teach, I say we just because, I've got a team behind me that helps me with content and social media and administrative stuff. But again, I'm the only one coaching you. But the process that I use with you is really the only process that I've seen out there that will boldly proclaim loud and proud that you can live a life without repetitive, chronic, severe anxiety, and that will show you the skills and tools of how to do that. So that's the big thing. Like, if you do something different, you'll get different results. If you keep doing the same thing you've always done, you'll always get the same results. So a lot of people will say like, oh, well, your process isn't going to work for me. I've been trying for 20 years. I'm like, no, you're not. You did the same thing 20 times in a row that you did your very first year. So you don't have 20 years of experience overcoming anxiety. You have 1 year of trying to overcome anxiety that you've done 20 times. So you got to do something different to get different results. And when you do something different, you will get different results. I mean, that's just kind of the law of the universe, really. The other thing, though, is we know this is your number one concern. And that's why we're providing the completely unconditional money-back guarantee. So again, if you don't feel it's like the absolute best thing you ever did for your mental health after your first week, walk away and get refunded literally everything. And if you're not willing to take like a couple hours out of your week to verify that this might work for you, then I just got to call it like it is. You're not really serious about getting this handled. Because if someone's providing you a completely, totally risk-free way to do it, and you're not taking yourself up on that, then you're either too afraid to move forward, in which case you have to get over that. You're just going to have to, because we're paving the way to make it as easy as we possibly can, but you still have to be the one to walk down the path. You know what I mean? So I can't reach through the computer screen and grab you by the neck and pull you to an anxiety-free life. I mean, this is the equivalent of me trying to do that. So you got to take the step. You got to do something. You got to do your part. You have to, as a coach told me many years ago, you must participate in your own rescue, right? But we will make sure that you are protected and that it's risk-free. So honestly, I'm saying don't even believe me. Like, try it out. See for yourself. That's how you'll know. I mean, would you trust your own judgment after you've done a week of the program? You don't have to believe me. Just believe yourself. Do the program, try it, use it, implement it, and then you'll know. So that's that. Okay, how is this program different from therapy, medications, or other online courses we've had? We basically covered that very much in detail early on. I'm not going to repeat myself there. I spent a lot of time on that. Same question I got earlier. What makes the program different from free resources, books, or apps? Well, firstly, if you're trying to lead yourself out of this, it becomes really problematic, because when you're dealing with severe anxiety and you're trying to overcome anxiety yourself, it's almost impossible. It's kind of like being lost in the forest and all you can see around you are trees, and all the trees look exactly the same, right? Like when you're trying to overcome anxiety, all you know is your brain is full of anxious thoughts. You don't even know what to believe, what's true, what's fear, what's a lie. How do you even get out of that mess? But imagine if there was someone like in a helicopter with an aerial view who's no longer lost in the woods, but was once lost in the woods, and can now say like, hey, I see where you're at. Go here, go here, go here, take a left, walk 100 yards, right? Like, that's what you need. You need somebody else who's not so close to the problem. You're so close to the problem very often that you can't even see what the problem is. I had a mentor who told me a long time ago, this changed my whole life, and they said that your mouth is 1 inch away from your nose, but you still need somebody else to tell you when your breath stinks. Right? Like there are just some issues in life that you cannot solve fully on your own. You need help to get it done, or you're just going to keep spinning your wheels. Number 4, will I have to stop therapy and medications to do this program? No. In fact, you should not take anything I've said as like, hey, stop medications and stop therapy right away, especially if you don't have anything else going on. I never tell my clients they have to stop their medication or their therapy to work with me. In fact, I'll usually tell them, yeah, go ahead, just keep doing what you're doing, but let's deal with the real root of the issue. And then by day 90, they're like, yeah, I really don't feel like I need my medication at all, and I definitely don't need my therapist at all. So there very naturally comes a point where you're just not going to need those things. But yeah, you don't have to stop anything you're doing if you want to keep it. Okay, number 5. What are your credentials? So I get this question a lot, like, what school did you go to? What are your credentials? Blah, 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 blah. And my credentials, like, are my results. Like, that's what it is. And if you're so hung up on credentials, you're probably focused on the wrong thing. Like, if you're looking for proof that I can help you, that's cool. That's awesome. I'm cool with that. No problem with that. You should definitely be concerned with that. But if you think that a couple letters behind a name or a piece of paper on a wall gives somebody the effectiveness to actually help people solve this issue, you got it all wrong. And you're probably not even the type of person we're looking for. Like if you're so hung up on credentials and you think credentials is what's going to save you, go ahead and find somebody with the fanciest letters you can find and work with them. But you're focused on the wrong thing. What you need to be focused on is, do your methods work? All right? Like, can your methods work for me? And one of two things is going to happen. I'm either brand new to you, in which case you're not going to trust me at all. And why should you? Because I'm brand new to you. Why should you believe anything I have to say? In which case, you can either apply, you become accepted, and again, you're protected by my 7-day guarantee right there. Right? I put it in writing right there for you. You can see it. It's there. It's not some secret. It's there. And then if you do know me, like I know a lot of you guys like have been following me for years or months or whatever, you've probably used a lot of the free stuff I've given you. You've probably already seen that my free stuff works. And so if my free stuff works, how good could my paid stuff be? You know what I mean? So it's all about results. Oh, and by the way, you don't even have to take my word for it at all. Literally just look up my testimonials. Just go to ty-hicks.com/testimonies, and you will see everything that everybody has had to say about me. It's right there. We've got hundreds and hundreds of written reviews. We've got dozens of video interviews that people have done where they explain their exact process. It's all there. Just go ahead and check it out. Check out my Facebook ratings. Do whatever you want. Okay, there you go. But that's what you should be concerned with, are the results I have produced. Because somebody with credentials may not be very effective at producing results. And that's the thing that has always mattered to me far more, is not my schooling, but my education. And I have ruthlessly educated myself on the methods and technologies that work to get people great mental health, even though I have not prioritized schooling. And if you don't know the difference between schooling and education, you're probably not a great client for me anyway, okay? Number 6, is this worth the investment? What if I don't see the results I'm hoping for? Program seems expensive, right? So here's the thing. There's a cost to everything, right? There's a cost to taking action, certainly. But there's also the cost of not taking action. And so here's what I would honestly say to you. Like, I am not here to tell you, be my client at all costs, and I'm going to say and do everything I can to get you to be my client. No, I want you to make the best decision for you. But here's the thing. We are usually very, 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 very bad judgments of character of what is truly the best decision for ourselves. And most human beings, particularly human beings with anxiety, tend to push off and snooze the action that would really truly lead to a better life, simply because they want to wait for this hypothetical moment in the future where it will feel more comfortable. And let me tell you, that moment is not fucking coming. You must learn, if you're serious, dead set serious on getting rid of anxiety, let me tell you right now, there is one piece of that equation that you must learn. And that one piece you must learn is to be willing to build the emotional muscle of handling discomfort and uncertainty. If you want to live on planet Earth, you're going to have discomfort and you are going to have uncertainty. You can do it with anxiety or without anxiety. If you want to do it without anxiety, part of that is accepting that uncertainty and discomfort is part of the game. It's part of the equation. There's no way. Again, like I said, I've paved the way as much as I possibly can. Like, what else can I do for you short of, cool, literally work with me for free, try my thing out. If you don't like it, then back out and get a refund. Like, how can I make it any easier for you? You know what I mean? So there's a cost to taking action, theoretically, but there's also a cost of not taking action. And most people are so hung up on the cost of taking action, they fail to realize how much it has cost them by not taking action. I had a client recently who their anxiety had kept them where at a certain job they were making about 55 grand a year, but they previously were making 120 grand a year. They left the 120 grand a year job because of anxiety. They took a pay cut so they could work part-time for 55 grand a year. They had done that for 4 years. And so they asked me, hey, how much is your program? And I said, well, it's certainly a lot less than 230 grand. Right, which is what it has cost you just in the past 4 years, just from financial terms, by you having this anxiety. Like, the question you want to ask yourself is, what could you really be earning in your career if anxiety was not a problem? Just think about that for a second. Like, what would you really truly be making a year if you had no anxiety limiting you in your career? That's the first thing you would want to ask. The next thing you would want to ask is, how much have you spent on vacations in the past 5 years? For most people, if you got a family, the average cost of a vacation is usually like 4 to 5 grand. So most people would spend 4 to 5 grand to have peace of mind for 5 days, but they won't spend a little bit of time and money to make sure that they can have peace of mind forever, for a long period of time, right? Like, you got to ask yourself, what is it going to cost me over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years if I don't get this anxiety dealt with? And then we haven't even talked about the biggest cost, which is your time. Like, a lot of people will say, yeah, but insurance is free, or, my therapy is free with my insurance. And I'll be like, is your therapy free? How much are you worth an hour? How much is it worth for you to drive to the therapy appointment, drive back from the therapy appointment, spend the hour in the therapy appointment, that 2 hours every week that you could be spending with your son, your daughter, your spouse? Is that worth nothing to you? Is your time worth nothing to you? You've been doing that for 5 years, 10 years, however long. So I'm just saying, ask yourself this. Is the cost of keeping the anxiety much greater than the cost of taking action? And I would guarantee for 80 to 90% of you, the answer is yes. In that case, what are you waiting for? You know what I mean? Number 7 question I get a lot is, do I have enough time to dedicate to this program? So like I said before, you need about 4 to 5 hours per week for about 90 days. After the 90 days, you'll only need about 10 minutes a day. That's it. If you have a week you need to take off, or a week you're busy, or whatever, life happens, that's part of why we have 9 weeks of homework, but we work with you for at least 12 weeks, because we know life happens. It's very flexible. Okay. Number 8, what if I can't keep up with the program or I fall behind? Let me give you kind of a news flash. Every single client I have ever had, well, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't use the word every, because I don't know that for absolute sure, but every client I can remember at this exact moment has had a moment where life happens, like I don't know, like they got sick or something, like they got a cold or they got COVID or their kid got sick or whatever, right? Like life happens, in 3 months, something's going to happen, but it's cool. It's all good. Like we work with the client until they get the solution. So I'm not really concerned about any of that. All you got to do is just be honest and clear with me and make sure that you're not making shit up, because I'm an excellent bullshit detector. I know when somebody legitimately needs to take a week off and when they're just bullshitting. Like I know that. So as long as you're honest and clear and direct and you do the work when you can do the work, you'll be just fine. Because again, you're not on a strict timeline or timetable. We work with you as long as it takes. I don't really care. Okay, number 9. What types of anxiety does this program... Oh, I should actually answer this other one a little better. So with the whole keeping up with the program, some people have this worry of like, well, I have ADHD, or I don't do well with like videos, or I process slowly, okay, stuff like that. I hear that kind of thing all the time. Let me just tell you, I've had hundreds of clients who've told me that stuff. They have done just fine. So again, we have all the material is there for you in every single modality you could possibly want. It's video, it's written, there's a workbook, the notes are guided, there's lesson summaries, it's all there for you. It's as easy as it can possibly be. I'm going to be working with you one-on-one to dissect it with you. It's fine. Like you might think you're a special snowflake, but you're going to be just fine. I promise you. Okay. We've run into it all. And if you process a little more slowly, so be it. No problem. Okay, number 9. What types of anxiety does this program work for? Are there any types it does not work for? Okay, so basically any type of anxiety that's out there, I have encountered it at least once, and I'm talking about like the really, really nuanced, weird stuff. And then the common ones I've encountered hundreds and hundreds of times. So the really common ones we get are anxiety attacks, panic attacks, health anxiety, OCD and compulsiveness, agoraphobia, specific phobias like speaking, heights, driving, public speaking I already mentioned, social anxiety. Okay, those are like the biggest ones. Those are the really common ones. But I've also dealt with all sorts of random stuff. Like I had a woman a couple years ago who had anxiety about a comet hitting the Earth and blowing the Earth up. I've had anxiety where people are having like auditory hallucinations on top of it. I've had tons of people with insomnia, tons of people with ADHD, tons of people with like alcohol being mixed in as an issue, people who are feeling depressed because the anxiety is affecting them in a deep way. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. I mean, I've encountered basically all of it. So, but here's the thing. We always do a quick little call with everybody to even just confirm that it would work for you. So if it's not going to work for you, I'll tell you like right away. And I'll also be honest with you. Like if I've only handled a couple cases like yours, I'll tell you. If I've handled like a bunch, hundreds, I'll tell you. I know exactly by now who our kind of ideal client is and who our non-ideal client is. So yeah. Okay, number 10. How personalized is this program to my specific situation and triggers? Very, very, very customized for you. So yes, there is like general knowledge, like there is the course material. It's kind of like there's like the textbook, and then I'm sort of your tutor, right? Like I'm making sure you learn it, it's applied, it's customized, all of that good stuff is factored for you. Every single time we do an appointment, it's all going to be factored for you. Even inside of each one of the lessons, I'll even in the videos say like, hey, if you're this type of person, do this. If you're this type of person, do this. So it's, again, we've done this hundreds of times, so we know how to specialize it for everybody. Number 11, what if my anxiety stems from trauma, childhood issues, or a specific event? If that's the case, then you're just like 2/3 of our clients. I mean, most people have been dealing with this a really, really, really long time. And like I said before, we have all the stuff needed to help process that, handle it, show you where the real problem is. Trauma is I feel very comfortable helping people process that. We can do it far more effectively than your average therapist. Number 12, does this program work for people with co-occurring conditions like OCD, depression, DPDR? I just listed all those ones off. I didn't mention DPDR, but I have worked with tons of people with depersonalization, derealization, very, very common stuff. Also, if you're dealing with flashbacks and nightmares, I deal with that. And the other one I didn't mention as well is PTSD, but we handle that very regularly, very commonly. And then also bipolar and borderline. Anybody that's gotten those diagnoses we work with those people very, very, very well. Okay, 13, how soon will I start seeing results and how will I know I'm making progress? So quite honestly, you usually start seeing some results within the very first 24 hours, because on that very first session, like I explained before, I'm giving you 3 clear strategies that you're going to use that'll be very powerful. And then you're going to start applying those, and they work very well. So, the first day, you'll see maybe like a 2 to 5% improvement. The first week, it's like 10 to 25%. From there, I would say on average in the first month, we usually get a 30 to 40% reduction in the anxiety. By month 2, we usually get 40 to 80%. And then month 3, it's usually like 75, 80 plus. By month 3, you're usually very well there. That's usually how it goes. Okay. 14, what kind of transformation can I realistically expect in 90 days? Well, I basically just answered that. Now, there are a lot of people who will claim, yeah, my anxiety is gone, like gone, fully gone. And the thing is, think of it like this. Like, let's say you wanted to lose 25 pounds, okay? If you want to lose 25 pounds, you might need to do things differently to lose the first 12 and a half than you need to do to lose the second 12 and a half, right? So it's very similar. Like, I am fully, totally confident. You might think I'm being cocky by saying this, but I'm not, because I've just done this. I've had probably at least 200 people that would claim that they have zero anxiety after following every single step that I've given them. But the thing is that some people are cool with just a 75% reduction, and they're cool with just doing what it takes to do a 75% reduction. And so they graduate at that point and they're like, I'm good. This is more anxiety reduction I've ever gotten before. I'm good. But then there are some people that are like, I want this fully eradicated. And I will say, great, game on. Here are the extra 4 or 5 things you need to do to make sure you never deal with this again. So it's like that. That's really how it goes. And we'll figure that out in month 3. But those percentages I just walked you through is pretty average, pretty realistic for what you could expect. Okay, 16. What happens if I relapse during or after the program? Will I still have tools to recover? So the amount of relapses that we have had has astronomically reduced so absurdly. And the thing is, just this past new renovation of the program, we basically outlined these are the 4 causes of relapse. We showed this in your very last week. These are the 4 causes of relapse. These are the things that you could do that could cause the relapse. Here's how to prevent the relapse. We walk you through everything to do. The only relapses we ever have are people who don't follow those instructions, which thankfully is like such a small percentage. I mean, I would put it at less than 10%. And even if they do temporarily slip back, it's really not permanent at all, because all they got to do is go back to that very video. They go, oh yeah, I didn't even realize I was doing that thing. And we show them exactly what to do, and they get right back on track. So that's how that goes. In the very, very rare event that it occurs, okay? 17, can I succeed even if I'm skeptical about non-traditional treatments? Is it normal to feel skeptical about trying the program? Yeah, of course. Anxiety makes you skeptical about everything, right? It would be weird if you were not skeptical in a way, you know what I mean? So, but if you've been, I mean, unless you've been like listening to my free stuff for like 3 or 4 years or something like that. But yeah. Of course you can succeed. Every client we have is skeptical. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the world of being an anxious person, okay? Yeah, you got skepticism. Cool. But if you let the skepticism keep you from taking action, now you're stuck. Now that's not going to work well. So yeah, go ahead, bring it. I don't mind. I don't mind you being skeptical. I want to give you results. I want to prove to you. I want to show you the results. Like, just here, do this. Cool, you got results. Awesome. Are you skeptical anymore? No. Cool. Let's go on to week 2. Pretty simple. All right, number 18. What specific tools or strategies will I learn in this program? How does this program handle progress tracking and feedback? So I counted it up at one point, and it was like 94, I want to say, is like the total amount of really specific nuanced strategies that we have available. Now, the amount that you'll end up learning is probably going to be like 25% of that, because we really, really isolate and hone in on what you need to know. Okay, so we're not here to like overwhelm you with a bunch of stuff. If you want to learn them all because you're curious, I mean, you can, but we just want to get you results, right? So it's pretty impossible for me to say like exactly what tools you're going to learn, because I don't know, like, it depends on you. You know what I mean? Like OCD person needs different tools than a health anxiety person needs. But we have the full coaching plans mapped out for each of those types of people. So that's where we got to, like, that would be a question I could answer for you on a consultation probably, but I would need to know more about your situation. But it's a good question. Number 19, will I have to talk about or revisit painful past experiences to see results? 80% of the time, no. And if we do ever need to bring up something that happened in the past, it's never done in a painful, agonizing way. It actually creates a lot of relief and a lot of healing for you. So, very often people tell me after they've graduated the program, like, oh my gosh, I finally feel relief from my past. I finally feel relief from my ex or from my dad, or like, I hear that stuff all the time. So you should welcome that. You know what I mean? Like, you should welcome us digging in and dealing with it, because we're actually going to deal with it. We're not going to just like sit around and talk about it over and over and over. All right. Number 20, what happens if my family or workplace doesn't support me during this process? Doesn't matter is the real answer. It really does not matter. You need to be your own advocate, okay? And you need to stop relying and expecting and hoping that everybody else is going to participate in your healing journey, okay? That may not sound nice, but it's the fucking truth. If you sit around and wait for everybody else to validate you and support you and give you permission to do what you need to do for yourself, you are screwed. Okay, you need to decide it's time for you to do what is necessary. And by the way, they don't even need to know, right? So if you're in the habit of telling everybody about your anxiety and, oh yeah, my anxiety is real bad and blah, 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 you probably need to break that habit anyway. And we don't really, no one else needs to know. Like, you just need to learn this shit, do this shit, and then the results will speak for themselves. It's like, if you are going to get physically fit, you don't need to advertise to everybody at your job that you joined a gym. You just need to go to the gym, build the muscles, and then what's going to happen is people are going to go, holy shit, look at Tina. She's ripped. What is she doing? What are you doing, Tina? And that's when you can talk about like, oh yeah, I joined this program a little while ago. It's going really well. So people will start to respond to you differently as you generate the results. You don't need anybody else to do this. Now, with that said, if you have a spouse, a lot of times if you're married, then your partner is intimately familiar with your anxiety issue. They care about you getting help. They maybe even want to do anything they can to help you. Maybe they even want to be a part of the journey. Like, if you're one of those really adorable, cute couples that does everything together, I have those from time to time as clients. Cool, no problem. Your partner can be on every single session for all I care, if that's what is truly going to serve you and be best for you. In other situations, you have a partner who doesn't understand anxiety. They don't get it. They don't believe in it. They think you're making it up. They're unsupportive. They don't think you need help. And you really do know you do need help. And in that situation, you're probably better off to just work with me privately. And then they'll go, holy shit, what did you do? And you'll say, hey, I did this program. See, anxiety is a real thing, but I fixed it. And they'll go, cool. So no matter what your situation is, we can figure it out. Okay, they don't have to be involved, but they can be involved, and I can give you coaching on how to have them be involved in a healthy way, if that's what is going to serve you best. Okay. Question number 21. By the way, for anybody who's ready to just apply, if you got your questions answered, just go ahead and put apply in the comments, or just go ahead and go to mentalhealthcoaching.com and book a call. Okay, we are closing enrollment tomorrow night at midnight. And so if you want to take advantage of those bonuses, just go ahead and do that. Number 21, how do I handle setbacks or bad days? Will I feel like I'm failing? So the fear of failure is very often a thing that keeps people from taking action. And the thing I want you to remember is that successful people are just people who have failed more than you. I failed for 2.5 years trying to figure out how to overcome my anxiety, but I was willing to fail. I kept being willing to fail. I kept being willing to try this and try this and try that and read this book and do this thing and do that thing. And a lot of it was garbage. Most of it did not work, but I found the golden thread of stuff that did work because I was willing to fail. So let me just tell you, you're going to have a bad day, especially in the first couple of weeks. Like, that's okay. It doesn't matter. Like, if you're expecting us to snap our fingers and you're anxiety free by day one, you need to get rid of that expectation, okay? Nothing grows in a straight line. Just look out your window, right? Whether you believe in God or nature or whatever, like, nothing grows in a straight line, and you're not going to grow in a straight line either. What we want is the jagged upward line, okay? So you'll have, first you might have bad days, but then you'll have bad hours, and then you'll just have like a bad 20 minutes, and then you'll only feel anxiety for like 5 minutes. And it's a whole thing we coach you through is how to reduce that. So yeah, you might have a setback, but I'm here for you. We've got accountability. We know exactly what to do to get you on track. Every client I have ever had has had a bumpy, jagged line, but it's like, here's the thing you want to remember, like airplanes. Did you know that airplanes are off track over 95% of the time? Did you know that? They have a target, they get up in the air, and they are off of their flight path 95% of the time because of like weather and all sorts of stuff. But it doesn't matter because they just make little adjustments, and then, the vast majority of planes land right where they need to land. That's what we'll do too. We'll just make tiny little adjustments. We'll get you where you need to go. No problem. Number 22, can I stay connected with the community after the program ends? Yep, you have lifetime access to our client-only Facebook community, and you can participate as much or as little as you like. Number 23, will this program help with specific fears like public speaking or social anxiety? You bet, absolutely. 24, what happens after the initial 90 days? Can I book additional sessions or continue support? So once you feel comfortable graduating, whether that's 90 days or 100 days or whatever, once we've gotten a minimum of that 75% anxiety reduction, ideally much more than that. Most clients get more than that, but so long as we've gotten at least that, then our one-on-one relationship can go one of two directions. You can either decide you want my help for other stuff like relationship issues, like career advancement, building your business, right? I coach people on those other things too. So we can either continue working together like that, or in most cases, you'll just say, cool, I'm good to go, Ty, I'm good. And then after that, you can utilize the email support, the Facebook group, the group coaching calls, the class. And then every once in a while, a client will need a super duper tiny like tune-up session. So like I had a guy who he had severe agoraphobia for 30 years. We got it handled 2 years ago. He's been flying straight as an arrow for 2 years. He had a tiny little bump around the holidays, just a super tiny little bump. And he just booked a quick little 20-minute call just because he wanted to get back on track. And he didn't want to email me and do the back and forth on the email. He just wanted to pay for a little 20-minute session. So that's what we did. So we leave the door open for paid sessions if anybody needs it. But it's very, very rare that occurs unless we're like moving you up to a new level, working on other stuff in your life. Okay. 25. Does this program teach techniques that I can also use to help my children or family members? You bet your ass. Every person I've ever had who's been a parent who goes through this program says that they become far better parents. Every person who's married says that they become a far better wife or husband and their relationship has improved. There's just no way. I mean, your anxiety is dragging everyone down around you. No, I'm not saying you're dragging everyone down around you. I'm saying your anxiety is dragging everyone down around you. So we get rid of the anxiety, everybody else is lifted up really, really easily. Okay, is there flexibility in scheduling the group or one-on-one sessions? What if I miss a session? Can I reschedule or catch up? The group sessions are set. We send out an alert about a week in advance. Those are set. We don't change those. But you will have access to the recordings of all of those. For one-on-one sessions, we can reschedule, no problem. I have a 24-hour notice cancellation or reschedule policy. So you just got to let me know. But of course, life happens, right? So if you get in a car wreck or something happens and we got to skip, we can do that. Number 27, what if I don't feel comfortable participating in group calls or sharing with others? You don't have to. You can hop on the group calls and just listen in. A lot of people do that. Or you don't have to do the group calls at all. The group calls are totally a bonus, basically, right? You really don't have to do the group calls to succeed with this program. Let's see. What if I feel like I'm not ready to face my anxiety yet? You're never going to feel ready. And if you keep waiting to feel ready before you do things, you're probably waiting to do lots of important things in your life because you never feel ready. And so you're making your whole life about trying to feel ready when it probably is never going to happen. So accept that you're never going to feel ready and move forward anyway, or just stay stuck forever. Okay, number 29, can I still achieve success if I don't have a lot of self-discipline or willpower? Here's the truth. You have discipline for anything in your life that you take seriously. There are certain things that you do in your life that you would never skip doing. If you have children, you probably make sure that your children are fed. And there are probably days where you don't feel like cooking, or you don't feel like going out and getting food, or you don't feel like grocery shopping, but it is a must for you for your kids to be fed. You have discipline around feeding your kids, even though you don't feel like it, right? You maybe don't have a lot of motivation or willpower, but you do it because it is a must for you. That's the real truth behind discipline and willpower. It's not that everyone likes to talk about discipline and willpower. That's not what it is. It's that there are certain things in your life that you take seriously, and there are certain things in your life that you aren't taking seriously. And you may not have up until now been taking your anxiety recovery seriously. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not me dogging on you. I'm just saying, let's just be truthful about what it is. Because if you have a job, you probably take showing up to that job seriously. You probably have a lot of discipline around the certain requirements around that job. So it's not a motivation issue. It's that you take it seriously, right? So you got to raise your standards. You got to take your mental health seriously. Okay, number 30, what if my anxiety spikes during the program? It could very well happen, especially in the first month. It's no problem. We can set up a session really quickly if we need to. We've got everything you need. We've got exactly what to do if a major life challenge happens. We've got exactly what to do when an anxiety attack occurs. We've got it all laid out really easily for you. So it's honestly the perfect little safe space for you to be in. It'd be better for the anxiety to spike while you're in the program than to not be in the program. Okay, 31. Will I be able to apply what I learned here on my own after the program ends? Duh. Yes, absolutely. 100%. And in fact, it's going to be wired in you. Most of it is going to be automatic responses that are positive, as opposed to automatic negative responses. That's the other beauty of this, is it becomes wired. You don't have to think about most of it. Okay, number 32, can I revisit the program content later if I need a refresher? Yep, you've got lifetime access to it forever. 33, do you offer payment plans or financing options for the program? Yes, we do. We do have a option. We work with a third-party lender where you can do $0 down. Your first payment is in 30 days. And depending on your credit score and your income and things like that, you can get an extended payment plan anywhere from 6 months all the way up to 36 months. So the way that we figure out what you're eligible for is you just need to fill out a little simple pre-approval questionnaire that does not affect your credit, and that will show you what extended payment plans you have available. We also offer a couple payment plans in-house, so we're pretty flexible. We can make just about anything work. Okay. Number 34. Does this program involve meditation or practices that might conflict with my faith? No, I have never encountered a situation where somebody has said, hey, what you're doing conflicts with my faith. The only exception to that is sometimes I swear. I don't swear a lot, but every once in a while I'll swear. That's just, that's just who I am, I guess, whatever. So if that's a big deal for you, then I guess I'm not the right guy for you. But most people don't, they don't really care. Okay, number 35. Will I need special equipment or technology to participate in the program? Nope. You ideally would have a computer or a tablet, but as long as you have like a smartphone at a minimum, you're good to go. If you're seeing this right now on whatever medium or technology that you're using, that you can do the program. We even have an app you can download, so you can access it on your phone. So you can access it in multiple spots, and you can kind of like pick up where you left off from your desktop computer. So it's pretty easy. Okay. 36 question. I'm in the middle of a job transition or moving. Can I still succeed in the program? So yeah, like if you're in the middle of something, like I've had people that are like, hey, I'm getting married in 4 weeks, or I'm moving 3 weeks from now, or whatever. Can I still succeed in the program? Absolutely, 100%. And usually not even usually, like absolutely, because that's going to be a stressful thing. Like whatever that transition is that you're going to be doing is going to be stressful. Your anxiety level is going to be higher. So it would be so much better for you to start the program, get the tools you need so that you make that transition period less stressful, and then the whole thing goes a whole lot better. And again, like I said before, if you need to take a week off from the classes, no big deal. It's amazing how people talk themselves out of doing the right thing. It's like it'd be like saying, like, man, my arms are really weak. Should I go to the gym and do arm workouts because my arms are really weak? It's like, that's the whole reason you need to do the workouts. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that you feel so stressed out about this thing is the very reason you need help dealing with your stress. Like, why in the world would you go, oh my gosh, my anxiety is so high, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so stressed out, I can't join a program that's going to get rid of this overwhelm and stress and anxiety? That makes no sense at all whatsoever. That's the exact reason you need to do it. It'd be like, I need to wait until I stop bleeding to go to the hospital. That's not how that works, okay? Question number 37. I'm married. Does my partner need to be involved in any way? Nope, just what I said before. They don't have to be involved. They can be involved if they want to, and you want them to be, great. If you and or they do not want to be involved, no problem. The only exception to that is that if you are married, we do need to have your partner as on our consultation to verify that this is the right thing for you, so long as your partner is supportive of you getting mental health help. If your partner is openly not supportive of you getting mental health help, no problem, then I will consult with you individually. Okay, but if your partner is supportive, then we like to have them as a part of the initial conversation where we're walking through the full details of the program and everything that's included and everything that's required, just so that way everybody's on the same page. Because if they're going to support you, we want to make sure they are aware of how to support you best, right? So the metaphor that I like to use is the client is in the driver's seat. They're the only one that can drive us to the destination. I'm the guy in the passenger seat with the GPS. I know where we're going, and I know how to get you back on track if you get off track. The spouse is in the back seat, providing moral support, snacks, all that good stuff, right? Like, they're in the car too, you know what I mean? Like, they're affected by this. So ideally, we want to have them a part of that initial conversation. And if they want to be a part of follow-up conversations and you want that too, then we can do that. But if not, it's okay. Okay, number 38. How do I explain this program to my family if they don't understand my anxiety? I wouldn't even bother in most cases. I really wouldn't even bother. And if you are requiring, because you don't need them to understand, like, don't have them try to understand your anxiety. Get them to understand your recovery by taking responsibility for your recovery and doing what you need to do to recover. Then they're believing, like, they'll see it and then they'll believe it. You know what I mean? So you don't need them necessarily in most cases. Now, if you're in a situation where you're going to need a family member or a spouse to support you financially on making the decision to become a client, then you can leave that up to me. Okay, so what you can do is, first of all, you need to book your quick introductory call with me. So again, just put the word apply in the comments or go to mentalhealthcoaching.com. You can book that call. But once we do that quick little call and it's all green lights, hopefully, and everything, you seem like the type of person that I can help, then what we'll do is we set up a full follow-up consultation. And at that point, if there's somebody that would need to be supporting you on the financial decision to become a client, then we're going to need to have them a part of that call. But I can be the one who walks through all of this. I can be the one who explains how the method works, how it's different, who it's good for, who it's not good for, all that stuff, right? I'll consult with you guys. I'll help you guys make the decision that's best for you. If it's best for you to become a client, I'll encourage you to do that. If it's not best for you to be a client, I'll tell you that right away. And so you don't have to worry about translating all of this for your spouse. I can help with that. I'm very good at that, okay? Number 39, are there case studies or success stories I can review before committing? Yes, 100%. There's hundreds of them. Just go to Hicks, so Ty and then like a little hyphen, hicks.com/testimonies, and you will be able to find them all. They're all right there. You can watch, we've got video interviews, we've got hundreds and hundreds of written reviews. It's all there. It's all right there. We've been rated as a top coaching company by Coach Foundation. I was awarded top mental health coach in the world by Coach Foundation. I've worked with 1 Olympic athlete, 2 music producing artists, and 1 Hollywood actress. You can see all the testimonies right there. Obviously, some people don't share their experience because they're more private about it. You could understand that. Like, not everybody wants to have their name public and all that stuff. So not everybody leaves us a review, but hundreds of clients have left us reviews. Okay. Number 40. Is this program backed by scientific evidence or research? Yes, that was everything I covered couple hours ago, right? So there's tons of research that's coming out that's showing that retraining automatic negative responses is really the way to go. And more importantly, there's all sorts of research that's come out in the past 3 years that is showing that the whole idea of a biochemical imbalance being treated with medication is not sufficient. It's not better than a placebo, and that talk therapy is largely ineffective in the majority of cases. So yes. Number 41, can I do this program even if I only have mild or anxiety or general stress? Yes, 100%. And I might as well answer this other question that comes up too, which is like, can this work for depression? Can this work for OCD? Yes. Every single thing under the sun, mental health related, I have dealt with the exception of a split personality disorder. I've never encountered one of those, but I'm pretty confident I would know what to do. But I'm just going to tell you guys the truth. Every other thing that can basically be encountered, I've encountered it. So yes, I can help you out for sure. Number 42, is this program suitable for someone who's never done any kind of coaching before? Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't matter. Come one, come all. It's all good. 43, how hard are the exercises and will they be difficult to get right? No, they're not difficult. They're really not. It's all baby step based. Nothing is more strenuous than like answering a couple simple questions on a piece of paper, or like a tiny little like closed eye process where we kind of take you through a guided little thing. That's like the extent of how strenuous it would be. It's really, really not difficult or complicated. Okay, number 44. Do I need prior knowledge or experience to succeed in this program? No, you do not at all. No. Number 45, can I pause the program if something urgent comes up? Yep. Although I'll do whatever serves you best. So if something urgent comes up that you need coaching support to get through and we need to pivot to deal with that issue that has come up, then that's what we'll do. If what supports you truly best is taking a little break, then yes, we will do that. So I will always do what's in the best attitude for the client. Okay, number 46, will this program conflict with another mental health program I'm currently doing? I really, really highly doubt it, unless you're doing a program that's like, you're going to have anxiety forever, you're going to be an addict forever, you're going to have depression forever. Like if somebody's like really proclaiming from the rooftops, like you're broken and you're broken forever and you can't really do much to fix it and you just need to accept it. If they're proclaiming those types of things, then that would be a conflict, because my whole program is really, really about self-empowerment, like you becoming the one in charge of your mental health again. So those are kind of like core foundational beliefs. But no, I mean, I've had plenty of people who are with a therapist and with me. I have no territorial issues with that. Every once in a while, I'll have a client where their therapist is like, you shouldn't be working with that guy, blah, blah, blah. But that's not a really good therapist. Like a good therapist should want you to do whatever helps you. So no, it never really becomes a problem. Number 47, how long does it take to complete each week's tasks or exercises? Mentioned this a couple times, about 4 to 5 hours a week. Some people a little less, some people a little longer, depending on your preferences. But I would say the bare minimum would be about 4 hours a week. And again, you can set that time aside whenever, wherever, it doesn't really matter. Number 48, is there a best time of year to start the program for optimal results? You know, that's a lot like asking, like, when is the best time to start exercising? When is the best time to start eating healthy? When is the best time to, go have a very frank and honest conversation with my parents? The answer is the same for all of these. Now is the time to do it. Because otherwise, your brain is going to rationalize and excuse a reason to press pause and not do it. And you've probably done this many times already. Like, how long have you been dealing with anxiety? Just ask yourself, how long? How long have you known this is a problem that you need to do something about? How long? Okay, cool. Are you comfortable waiting another however long that's been? 3 months, 3 years, 10 years? Are you comfortable with that? Like, are you cool going another that long a period of time? Because if you don't take action now, I'm not trying to be melodramatic, but this is how the brain works. If you don't take action in the moment when you know you need to take action, you'll resolve to take action later, but your brain will come up with an excuse later. That's why I'm saying now. You need to do it now. Okay, that's the best time to make any change in your life, is now. People always tell me things like, I think, oh, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until summer break when my kids are at home and then I'm going to do it. But it's just bullshit. Like, Life is never going to wait for you. There's never going to be this moment where you feel ready and you feel comfortable and you feel perfect and everything's great and the stars have aligned and it's the northern lights and there's meteors going through the show. Like, stop. Just stop. Just do the fucking thing you need to do to move the ball forward for your mental health. Now. Do it now. That's the time to do it. Otherwise, you will never do it. And you're constantly training your brain. You want to remember this. You are constantly training your brain whether you know it or not. You're training your brain to take action or you're training your brain to not take action. Which of those two do you think is going to lead to a better life? Which of those two is going to lead to a better example for your kids? It's pretty clear, okay? I'm being intense with you because I want you to have the life that you deserve. And frankly, I really don't even care if you become a client of mine. Like, I mean, that'd be great. I'd love to help you. That's great. I know I can help you. But I want you to make a decision one way or the other. Shit or get off the pot. Do something, right? So if this is your wake-up call, you got to do something. And if you're not going to do it with me, that's fine. I don't care. But do something, okay? 49, how can I ensure this program isn't just a waste of my time or money? Well, here's the thing. Ask yourself, how much time have I wasted on anxiety already? How much money have I wasted with anxiety being a part of my life already? Right? And if you can reasonably expect that my program is going to be less than that, then you should apply. Pretty simple. And number 50, what if I feel too overwhelmed to even start the program? That's exactly the reason you should start. If you're so overwhelmed, you're not taking the actions that you need to improve your life, oh my goodness, we got to get rid of that overwhelm stat. We got to get rid of it very quickly because you're probably delaying all sorts of other actions that you should be taking, but you're not taking to improve the quality of your life. Okay. So those are the pre-submitted questions. I had some questions in the chat. Let me answer these real quick and then we'll wrap up. Brenda Meyer says, don't you think personalities play an important role in anxiety? Short answer is no. Okay, there's extroverted people with anxiety, introverted people with anxiety, people who've passed all sorts of the different categorizations of the Myers-Briggs thing. And also personality is kind of a fiction. And what I mean by that is I'm not saying people don't have personalities, but personalities can change. And when you say like, oh, well, it's just my personality, I'm just an anxious person, that's very much like saying, oh, I have generalized anxiety disorder and I will for the rest of my life. If you define your problem in unsolvable terms, you will never solve that problem. So if you define your anxiety as a part of your personality, then you're never going to solve that problem. And it's just not true. I've had every single personality under the sun, every type of person, every type of shape and color and person I can possibly think of, ages from 13 years old all the way to 84 years old. I've got clients on 4 different continents from 9 different countries. I mean, just, it doesn't matter what your walk of life is, you can get rid of the anxiety. Okay. So if you guys want to take advantage of our promotion, remember you get the whole core program and then those 5 bonuses that I just mentioned earlier. Okay. So to apply, just go ahead and put apply in the comments or go to mentalhealthcoaching.com, book a call. We'll make sure it's the right thing for you. If it's not the right thing for you, I'll let you know. If it is, we'll move on to the next step. And by the way, the free call is always valuable because even if I'm not the right fit for you, I'll tell you, and I'll tell you what I would recommend you do anyway. So we'll get you closer to a solution either way. So anyway, thanks guys for sticking with me. Appreciate it. And remember, the best time to commit to getting your anxiety recovery started is right now. See you soon. Bye.